Welcome to the New Monks. This podcast is dedicated to those of us on the journey of evolution. Through these episodes, we will dive into the lives of individual people and discover what they have learnt and how they have handled their growth. We believe that we all have wisdom to be shared with each other and can learn from listening to each other's stories. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you feel like leaving us a review and sharing the love, that would be greatly appreciated. So this is just a heads up because, there's a lot of information that is coming to light at the moment, and through these episodes, each person is going to share a different side of that for them. Now, this isn't to say that every single thing that is shared here is going to be 100% accurate, It's just not where we are right now. It's just not the case of the unraveling and the disclosures that are being revealed to us. Obviously, things are always changing, and in one moment something can be so real and so true, and the next moment is completely shifted and changed into something else. This is the journey of evolution. This is the journey of ascension that we are going through right now. So this is just an invitation that your discernment is really, really important. As always, as usual, please take what resonates and leave the rest. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to the New Monks podcast. I am Jane Muller, your host, and you can find me on Instagram via the link below. And today's episode, I'm in conversation with Krys, and it was such an enlightening conversation for me, and definitely opened some doors for my own journey. And yeah, wow, we had a very long conversation. First of all, this is the longest episode that I have done yet, but I'm definitely a fan of the long form conversations where you can really actually dive in. We speak about so many different things here. A very interesting story because he's always had these very different experiences, out of this world experiences with, let's call it, extraterrestrials ever since he was a kid. So he's always been in touch with something else and has been very aware of it his whole life. And so he had a moment of recognizing his role and his mission, and he opened the heart space, which then shifted and changed and morphed into what he's doing now, which is called Peaceful Human Advancement, to facilitate those who wish to advance and evolve. We speak about so much of what's happening at the moment currently. He even downloaded a message in 2016, I think, which he shares with us. You'll have to wait until the end for that, which is so accurate to what is taking place right now, and which was called The Great Split, which is on point. And we speak about, spirituality and how having a direct experience is so completely different to just reading something in a book. Having that knowledge in your head is a completely different experience. And then we even speak about diet and all the different things that he's been going through personally in his life, as well as building a vision for the future and what is to come. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was really powerful for me, and I hope that it is for you too. Thank you. That thing always makes me laugh. It's so loud.
Recording in progress.
That's so good. Oh, bless.
Good to see you too, Zoom.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming into the space. And yeah, I've been following you online for a little bit now. I think it was since the beginning of last year.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have a conversation with you for a while, actually. So I'm really happy that it's managed to come now.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing. Thank you for trusting yourself and for creating this space for people to, share their story, be authentic, and just let them speak. So that's really important. So thank you. I'm excited to see what comes through.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So how I normally begin is just to take a few deep breaths in and out.
Mm-hmm. Always fantastic, those moments.
I know, it's so cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's,
then, yeah, if you can just tell us how you're feeling right now.
right now, my armpits are starting to sweat because every time I do an interview, that's what
I love
um
that.
yeah, so let's see, how am I feeling right now? Yeah, I feel centered. I felt a little agitated because of the chemtrails. I was talking to you about that a few moments ago.
Mhm.
Um, I feel optimistic for what is to come for humanity, even though at this time it seems like everything's so intense. But yeah, I hold the vision of a peaceful humanity, ironically enough. So
Mm.
yeah, I feel good. I feel like I'm ready to continue on with my projects and step into new avenues and continue to be of service. So yeah.
Mm.
How do you feel? How are you feeling?
I love that. I'm really excited to have this conversation. I feel like this, I like what you said at the beginning. I feel like this is actually a really interesting time to have it because so much has happened over this
Mm-hmm.
past year, like alone,
Mm-hmm.
and so much
Mm-hmm.
has shifted and changed. So, and it's funny because I've wanted to speak to you for a while, but if I spoke to you before, it would have been a completely different perspective.
Yep, it wouldn't have worked. So there's always a time and a place, although time doesn't really exist and neither does space or place. But you
Yeah.
know, relatively speaking, there's always a more divine moment that allows things to be as simple but affect as many things at once, you know? So I think they call that free energy or something like that, where there's not as much of an output or an input as much as there is an output. So yeah, this moment is
Mm.
powerful because now we can express and expand upon things that we couldn't before. So
Yeah, exactly.
it'll be fun.
Yeah. I like what you said here. I just wanted to dive into that a little bit more about
Mhm.
what's happening in the world at the moment, even though sometimes it can feel like it's not. And you said you're excited for what's to come.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so for people who may not know the work I do, or you know, kind of where I'm coming from, um, my mission on this planet is to achieve peaceful human advancement, whether that's with one human being or 1 million or 1 billion. You know, my intention here in this body at this time is to be of service in a way that reminds people of what they are, but also how they can be and embody what they are. So what that means is a lot of times we have to undo a lot of the things that we did in our previous years as people on this planet. So lots of sorry, could you hear that? I don't know if that's like when
Yeah.
people, I'll turn off my phone. So yeah, that's what I do. And I think when I say I'm looking forward to the future, you know, I hold in my mind and in my field at all time, not at all times, but a lot of the time, a humanity that is evolved. You know, we might still have these bodies, we might still have to utilize what I would call barbaric technology like iPhones and stuff like that, because this technology is absolutely old and it's kind of
Ancient.
it's like what is, you know, it takes away from our ability to actually be telepathic and actually communicate through dream space intuitively. You know, the phone is just a placeholder for people who have, or species who have forgotten how to utilize those abilities. So I'm excited for what's to come because like anything that is worth value, anything that has an eternal existence, it's going to go through what some would call like a dark night of the soul or some sort of density or intensity. Like we're growing plants inside right now downstairs and they're like in these little pots, right? So before we put them outside, we grow them indoors for a little bit. And every once in a while, you have to go over and you have to like fan the plants. So when they go outside into the real environment, they can withstand the tethers and the pushes and pulls of the wind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this is also symbolic of what I see is happening with humanity right now. We're all getting put into a position, whether from our higher dimensional aspects, whether through governmental structures or family or some ill-intended medical procedures, that's kind of like the fan blowing on us, trying to make sure that we are sturdy and strong and we can withstand all that true reality has to offer, because we are living in an artificial construct. This isn't how, intelligent species operate. We don't operate by codependency on external things. So I'm excited to see humanity taking these steps and going through um, the birthing pains of becoming an evolved species or re-evolving species, right? So I think I wouldn't be here having this interview, doing the work I'm doing, if people on this planet were not ready to
Yeah.
make that next step.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely feels like that.
Yeah, it's intense. It can be intense. I mean, before you like, I used to play college sports, right? And like, in order to be as good as I was and as good as our team was, we had to lift weights, we had to do all this really tough stuff. But it's like, almost, it's this really interesting paradox. It's like we like things to be easy and simple, but yet we're not capable, or many people are not capable of doing what is required to have that ease and simplicity in their life. And we can't skip over the fact that the majority of the species has been completely brainwashed on many levels and many lifetimes. So yes, the simplicity and the privacy and the authentic and eternal realm is there, but we have to address what's actually happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
moving through that is what hurts. It's like literally creating this, like, actually I could say it's like taking off the band-aid, right? You get a cut on your leg and you rip off the band-aid, it's going to hurt a little bit. So those are kind of the growing pains I think humanity's going through. It's like, you guys really ready to make this shift or not?
Yeah. So, what does peaceful human advancement mean to you?
What does peaceful human advancement mean to me? Well, when you say what does it mean to me, it's I hear that as more of like, how do I perceive it? So I perceive PHA, or peaceful human advancement, as a vehicle of consciousness that offers invitations to beings on this planet uh, to take this next step. And this next step isn't a it's more of a spiritual maturity more than anything. So we have to, again, take off the blinders and understand that we as a species hardly know anything, that we're living in ancient times. um, a lot of people think that like the barbarians and the Neanderthals and the cavemen were like living in the old days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know if they actually existed as much as we're told.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that we have a cell phone, the fact that we can talk on a screen, doesn't by any means mean that we're evolved. It just means that we have kind of become lazy with our organic technology, and we have forgot how to interface with actual, as some people would call, consciousness assisted technology. So CAT, consciousness assisted technologies,
Yeah.
right? Meaning this is more of a consciousness assisted technology than this is. I can't think to this and have it do anything. This, I could think to it, interface with this crystal, it would pick up on those frequencies and literally house and store those codes and those energies, right? I mean, you could make the argument that everything kind of does that to some degree, but we don't have to mine, and we don't have to destroy the planet as much to work with this as we would with this. So the words in peaceful human advancement are very important. So peaceful, right? If we break that down, peaceful doesn't mean that you are never going to come across confrontation,
Yeah.
right? Peaceful doesn't mean that you're always going to be in a complete, like, blissed out state, like, I got my tea and my coffee and I'm just good to go, and the clouds are beautiful and the sun is shining, I'm so peaceful, and you just kind of ignore things that are happening in the world. Peaceful means that even amongst the seeming chaos and disorder, you can maintain a centered point, and you can recognize yourself regardless of what's happening, within you or outside of you. So peaceful human advancement is it's a maturity,
Mm.
right? And then the human part would be really the beings, right? So the people incarnated on this planet in these suits, in these um, cosmic gloves, these bodies, right? The human species. So the human species is in need of a huge upgrade on a collective level. So my intention of the work I do is designed to target this collective of humans on this planet who are in need of an upgrade, not because they're weak, not because they're inferior to any other race, but because they're actually very powerful and, excuse me, they have a great potential. And no one wants to suffer. No one wants to continue to reincarnate in a finite system. I don't think any being really wants that. I
Mm-hmm.
just saw a really cool little thing go across your screen, like a
I think,
little,
yeah, I
I
think
don't
I
know.
saw it.
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah.
So I address the human collective. If you can address the human collective, then hopefully the planet, is restored as well. And then advancement, that's my most favorite part. So that this is the part where once you have a mature, spiritually evolved human race, well, now they get to move up into the higher realms of consciousness, and they actually get to utilize advanced technologies, free energies, interstellar portals. Like all this stuff is very real. It's very tangible. It's here now.
Yeah.
But the state of consciousness that the majority of the population is at would never know how to operate an actual interstellar craft, or let alone um, a portal device or something like this. So my intention with PHA is to prepare humanity to take this next cosmic step.
I love this.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's it in a nutshell. That was like a 5 minute nutshell.
Yeah, yeah, I really feel that. I love the distinction you made with peaceful because I feel like that's so important. A lot of the time we think peaceful is supposed to be this like all open,
Mm-hmm,
all
mm-hmm,
encompassing thing. But what I'm learning is that some words we have to really change the definition of what some words mean.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You can't, I mean, because if you think about it, if you're like, I use this, I used to teach yoga. I guess I still kind of do.
Yeah.
Um, I would say to my students, if you're doing yoga only when you're doing yoga, you're not really doing yoga.
Yeah, 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 100. It's like meditation, same.
Same. So it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's, can I maintain the asana, or the relaxation even amongst my kids screaming? Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, right? And so peace is the same way. If you have $1 in the bank, $1 million in the bank, what's your relationship? Like, people think that pain and discomfort is the enemy,
Yes.
and it's not.
Yeah.
It's your interpretation and your relationship to that
Mm.
energy that is going to allow you to see it as an enemy or a vehicle to co-create with,
Yeah.
right? Or make a different choice with. So yeah.
That's so true, and I feel like sometimes when you're delivering, words that people are perceived as
Mm-hmm,
pain or whatever,
mm-hmm,
then it's like people put that onto a person as well.
mm-hmm,
And it's like,
mm-hmm.
but I agree, it's the way that you perceive the energy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I have a little bit of a jump start because I was trained by Navy SEAL whenever I played sports, like an ex Navy SEAL. So I had to go through a lot of really tough trainings that helped me understand how I think differently. Where, most people, don't play Division I sports. Most people are never taught how to endure things that are uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah,
I went through a phase in my life where I wasn't allowed to yawn at 5 a.m. Because if I yawned, then I would have to go run around a football field 3 times in the freezing cold. So you learn that things aren't as bad as your ego and your thinking mind would have you believe they are. And you also learn that you're stronger and you have more willpower and more endurance and more strength and more vigor to deal with things that are uncomfortable.
hmm
So um, I'm sensitive to that. That's just how my brain operates. Like, if things are tough, I'm like, all right, well, it is what it is right now. And sometimes that's triggering for people because they do want to just kind of be in that, like, oh, this is so bad, and like, oh, my life sucks. I'm like, you're it doesn't have to be that, but
Yeah.
we're all at our own space place with
Yeah.
that.
And that's the biggest shift when you realize,
Hmm.
you're in control of it, really.
Yeah, it's like it's a responsibility.
Yep.
I mean, if you really think about it, like how many areas, like even just like in your life, are you still dependent on something else, whether that's again using the screen to communicate with me. You want to go to this, you're hungry, what do? You most of the time you go to the store to get food. We are transitioning back into gardening and permaculture, which is beautiful to see. That's part of peaceful human advancement, in that way. But we really are tethered into the system, just like
Yeah.
the Matrix. And to pull ourselves out, now we become responsible for growing our own food. We have to become responsible to think thoughts that are uplifting and pure. We have to become responsible when an energy arises within us, how we work with that energy. That's a lot of responsibility. And sometimes it's easier for people to say, you know what, government, you take care of me. You know what, guru or teacher, you show me the way. You tell me what to do, instead of recognizing that we have all the tools, and it takes just a little bit of adjustment and dedication to use those tools. So I think the key word is people, or the key phrase might be that people are intimidated by responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
you know
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
like we started, what we do, we live in the private now, and I'm having to transition a lot of my assets, a lot of kind of the way I do business into a venue that's more private.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, now what do I do with Instagram?
Yeah.
How do I still connect with people? So even for me, it's like I'm recognizing that I'm still kind of in this space of removing codependency and moving into co-creation, two different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's so much to talk about when it comes to all of what is
Hmm.
happening and moving forwards. But I would also just like to find out more about when did Peaceful Human Advancement start? Because I feel like when I was following you, your name was already that. And
Hmm.
how did you like come into the realization that this is what you're here for?
Oh, I love that question. How much time do we have now? Just kidding. All right. So basically, when did Peaceful Human Advancements start? I think I officially started the Instagram page back in like 2017, 2018.
Wow, yeah.
Um, yeah, like if I scrolled back, I could see my first posts and everything. But I would say peaceful human advancement was birthed through something that I had originally called the Heart Center, and this started back in 2013. And this is something I don't really talk a lot about. Um, there's an old Instagram page I had back then. It was called the Heart Center 9 or something like that. And like you kind of see like all this old stuff I was doing. It's so silly when I look at it. But you can like see the journey. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But years ago I was living by myself, and single, um, and not a lot of money, had a nice little rinky-dink car and a mattress to sleep on and a nice little fireplace. And I sat down by the fireplace one evening, and I just took out my notebook, and a pen. I got like a huge download about humanity is getting ready to move into the next stage, and it had everything to do with the heart. So I downloaded that the heart center was the next portal that humanity was moving through, and that there was going to be a huge clearing and a massive shift that humans were getting ready to embody and kind of work through. And but then that next stage was all about the heart center. And I still have, I think on one of my lives I talked about it, but somewhere I have the notebook, and it's ironic, it's a green notebook, right? The heart chakra is supposedly green. And I have the original writings in there about all the things I was supposed to teach and offer through the heart center. and I was supposed to bring all these people together and offer these online classes. And then I was supposed to open up a school. And this is back again, 2012, 2013. I had just graduated college, and sitting in an apartment by myself, kind of just like, oh, all right. And so that came to fruition. I met some people along the way. We offered online classes from the Heart Center. I'm still in touch with some of those beautiful people from my first original offerings. If you guys can find my old Instagram, you'll see that I was offering my services for $3.96 because at that point, I had realized the Tesla 369 thing. I was like, let's make it $3.96. But trimming away all the kind of extra stuff, the Heart Center was what really jump started my whole mission. And from there, I had started to get really interesting. Like I had tremendous amounts of what I would say ET contact experiences. And this has been happening my whole life. I've had very multidimensional, interdimensional experiences with different beings and really intense dreams. I would dream, come out of the dream in this waking body, in this physical body, and then see my dream like with my eyes playing out like in front of me. So it wasn't just in my head. I could actually visually see my dream. So what this tells me, understanding now, that I was literally in two spaces at once, that I was perceiving a higher realm, at the ages of 9, 10, however old I was. And so all these multidimensional experiences really shaped what everyone's seeing now. And like from a very young age, I would say, trained in cosmic understanding, higher dimensional physics. All this stuff that's kind of coming to fruition through peaceful human advancement has been an accumulation of events, circumstances that have happened to me since probably earliest. I'm like 4 years old, like, and on. So we fast forward, Heart Center was established. And then I went outside one night. My electricity was out in my house and I couldn't pay the bill. So I had to sleep in my car. So I sleep in my car in the driveway, and I fell asleep, obviously. And then I felt this like pressure on my lower back. It didn't hurt. It was just kind of like someone was like kind of like gently like massaging like my lower back. And I was like, oh wow, like, but I was asleep. And then I was on this like craft. I've never shared this with anyone, so it's funny. It's funny. It's all coming out now. You have a way to do this, Jess. I know. I see your medicine now. I get it. I get it now. She's like, we're gonna get it all. It's all gonna come out. But it's beautiful because people do need to hear this. So I was on this craft, and there was 3 or 4 beings, light bluish, purplish skin with these very I would say like royal blue. It wasn't like, oh, it's like kind of like this color, right? But it wasn't like a shirt. It wasn't like cloth. It was kind of like a layer, I guess, like an energetic suit. And one of them was sitting in front, one was sitting on the side, and one was sitting behind me. And they were all kind of, they felt like there was an urgency because I think they knew I was like about to wake up. There was this urgency. And I saw like the most beautiful like thing ever. There was this beautiful waterfall. Like we actually like flew through the waterfall, and it was coming over these beautiful mountains, and like there was all this green, dare I say, like iridescent, like beautiful colors. Like it was like amazing. And I could like see the ground. I knew I was in the air perceivably. And they said that they were like trying to get something like out of like my back, like they were trying to like remove something. And it didn't hurt, but they could tell they were like trying to like, all right, let's go, like we need to get this done now. And they were super peaceful. I then woke up and I was like, wait, what just happened? And I could feel like the sensation in my back, but now it was a little bit sore, like a surgery had been done, right? And so I didn't think about that experience for years. But then like after that experience, the stuff that was happening to me as a kid started to return again, seeing different beings. I've had experiences where like people would show up, I'd have a full-on conversation, turn, look, they're gone, kind of thing. um I was pulled over one time. I got a flat tire. It was like 12 o'clock at night. This guy drove up in this like really dark truck. He had like a pipe. I was like, oh, what is going to happen here? And he goes, hey, can I help you? And I'm like, I'm okay. He's like, no, I think I really do need to help you. He's like, you're not going to make it another couple miles unless I help you. I'm like, okay. He goes, if you drive down this road, make this turn, there's going to be this building here. He's like, they will be able to help you. I was like, well, you just said I can't drive a couple of miles. How am I going to, like, how's this tire going to make it? And he says, trust me, like, I'll follow you all the way. He's like, you'll be fine. So I start driving down the road with this flat tire, and lo and behold, make the turn, go this way, and there's this building there. I walk in, and these people are able to help me out. I go out to talk to the guy. I said, how'd you know that this place was here? And I said, like, who are you and what's your name? And he looks at me like square in the eyes, and he says, I've been around for a long time, and drives off.
Wow, I'm getting good.
And I never heard from him again. So I know I'm saying a lot, but I have to to answer your question of how we got to PHA. It wasn't just I hopped on Instagram. It was like, hey, world. It was like an accumulation of direct, real time experiences with interdimensional star beings that has orchestrated, most of this. And so I started to study Dr. Stephen Greer years later, blah, blah. I fell asleep one night, learned about the CE5s, woke up the next morning with Peaceful Contact Initiative. That was before PHA. And the intention there was to help people make peaceful contact. But yeah, so let me pause because I know I just said a lot. But that's how it all started.
Yeah.
And part two is like how we get into PHA and kind of the work I'm doing now. But yeah, that's like the backstory.
That's so crazy. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, I'm wondering how did you cope with all, it sounds like you were very much in touch with that mystical kind of realm. How do you, because I feel like for some people it can be really difficult because
Mm-hmm.
not everyone is having these experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it.
How
I
was
know.
that?
How was it?
Yeah.
What was it like? Um, it was transcendental. I mean, I grew up Christian. I was adopted. I had a really interesting physical, earthly upbringing. Um, I remember asking my mom, like, if she believed in ghosts and things like this. But I found out years later that my biological side of my family, my grandma was very, like, she was very tuned in, very connected. My earth mom, my physical earth mom, um, she's very connected too. She's had her own stuff going on, but you could feel that she's like on it.
Hmm.
So I think it kind of runs in the family. But as a kid, not really being able to talk about the fact that you could astral project through mirrors and that you were seeing your dreams play out in front of you, that was really tough. There was a time whenever my aunt was babysitting me, and I was in my room. I think I was going to bed, and the closet door opened, and I saw these eyes like in the closet, and I was like, like I literally like freaked out, and I like jumped out of bed. I was on a bunk bed, so I like jumped down, ran. I was like, no, there's something in there, and she's like, no, there's not. I'm like, yes, there is. And of course, like your aunt, she's sitting there knitting whatever she was doing. She's not gonna, think twice. So I had to, like, I saw shadow beings. Like I would see like, you know, energies move across the room. There was one time whenever my robe, I swear, my robe like hit me on the back of the head. I woke up and I was like, wait, what? So I was totally in floating in and out of, this realm and others. So it
Yeah.
was tough to, yeah, to deal with because I didn't know what I know now,
Mm.
and I couldn't piece it together. And you can't go and ask the pastor like, hey, you talk a lot about Jesus over here, but at the same time, I'm having all this other stuff show. I haven't met Jesus yet, but I met some cool other beings. Can you tell me about that? It's like, no, you're a sinner. You're going to go to hell. And um,
Yeah.
you kind of get shut down. So yeah, it was tough. I would say it was tough for me to deal with it, not because it was scary, but because no
Yeah.
one else around me could really understand or put pieces to the puzzle, you know.
So did you find it was something you didn't really speak about to other people?
Um, did I speak about with other people? You know, we have like spirit has an interesting way of like making sure our needs get met.
Mhm.
So at church, I had a friend. I won't mention his name. I haven't spoken to him in years, but I think he played a huge kind of pivotal role in like being that placeholder
Mm.
for me. He actually introduced me to football, and actually more than that, he would have these kind of we would tell ghost stories together.
Wow, I
So
love
we would both get to church early. We'd go up into one of the rooms, shut off the lights, and be like, "So last night, da da da." Yeah, and so that was really cool because I couldn't talk to mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, other people, but he was put into my life, I think, to ensure that that purity and that innocence still was intact.
that.
And so, because I don't know what would happen if I couldn't actually verbalize it. So
Hmm.
he was there for a couple years, and then played a pivotal role in holding that space, so that I could talk about it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I love that. That's so sweet.
yeah, it was cool. He's a cool guy.
Was there like any moments where you were in denial about what you were experiencing, or did you just grow to just accept, okay, there's more, you know?
Yeah, denial was never there.
Wow.
Ironically, because I think it was just so like it happened so often.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like my dreams are so vivid. I had one dream where I was talking to a dog and it was singing, and then I woke up and I saw the dog in my room, and I was like, how are you there? Like, what are you doing? And and so again, and I had that other friend, and actually one other friend I could talk to about it. We were hanging out one time, and we were playing Jenga,
Yeah.
and I threw a Jenga piece like into the fire pit. We left, no one else was around. I came back, and the Jenga piece was like not in the fire. It was like not in the fire pit anymore. He's like, how'd that happen? I was like, I don't know. So he actually messaged me years later. And he's like, hey, remember we saw that UFO? And I didn't remember. I still don't remember to this day. He swears that me and him were hanging out and a UFO showed up.
Wow.
And he messaged me on Facebook one time, and I was like, brother, I don't know why I don't remember that event, which is really interesting to me
Yeah.
because he remembers it. I don't.
Yeah.
So denial, that's the only denial. I wasn't ever really in denial because it happened so frequently.
Okay.
And in my opinion, it was undeniable. There was no like, is this true? It was just like it's happening, and it was just a part of my life.
Mm. I love that. It was funny because the other day I was thinking I used to have an imaginary friend when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for me, I don't really see things, but I feel a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And then I just remembered the other day that I do not remember this imaginary friend at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All I remember is that my brothers and sisters always used to make fun of me.
Wow.
And I was thinking,
Yeah.
how strange is that? Is that like, there must have been like someone there, maybe
Mm-hmm.
and I just do not really remember. It's so bad.
Yeah, yeah. It's wild how our brain adapts. Like I think a lot of us have those experiences. It's
Exactly.
like the difference is, are we like, you can't grow a rose in the desert. It just doesn't work.
Mhm.
You can't put a fish on land. It doesn't work. So like we all need the correct atmosphere to help us
Yeah.
blossom.
Yeah.
And it's not that you were in denial that you forgot. It's just that your brain, we have this system in our brain called the reticular activation system.
Hmm.
And it's a bundle of nerves that sits at the base of our spine right here. Um, Reticular, yeah. So RAS, reticular activation system. And it's basically a computer program or holographic technology within our biological bodies that will sift out what's not important.
Yes, exactly.
And what's important is what we focus on, or
Yeah.
what is immediate within our surroundings. This is why whenever you get a new car, you see that car everywhere,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because now that car has become a very pivotal part of your life. It's your transportation. So
Mm.
it becomes a very key role in your life. So now your brain says, oh, this is important. We need this, we need this, we need this. And so it's going to literally sift out, make other cars invisible. They're not really invisible,
Mhm.
but you have hyper awareness now to that specific car that you just bought. The same is different with these experiences. I think with your imaginary friend, it's not that you forgot. It's just that as you've grown up, and as you have had your experiences, your world isn't receptive. It's not talking about imaginary friends. So it's just kind of like, all right, I guess this isn't important anymore.
Mm.
Let's go down here. And so what we're learning through avenues like this is how to broaden
Yes.
that horizon again.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
It's so interesting. I feel like what you were saying as well about someone was working on your lower back at that one point.
mm-hmm,
I feel like I've definitely felt some strange things when I've been like just before going to sleep.
mm-hmm,
Crazy energies. It feels like someone's working on something in my body
mm-hmm,
right now.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, what do you have you figured out what that is, or have you thought about it?
I feel what I have reflected is that yeah, I feel like there are beings that are literally making some changes in my body.
Yeah, yeah, like positive ones,
Yeah.
like things that assist a little
Yes.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And I bet if you kind of go back to that moment and then watch your trajectory,
Mm,
I have a feeling you'd see that it's upgraded,
yeah. Good word.
because that's essentially like it goes back again to peaceful human advancement. Well, ETs are never going to land in like in their true form
Yeah.
in their starships and be like, hey, we're here from planet, whatever, and we're here from whatever dimension. We've come with this technology. It's just one,
Yeah.
that's not how evolution takes place.
Doesn't
Two,
work like that.
that's what's that?
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. So the cosmos, source, prime creator is way more intelligent. It's like, well, all right, it's no different than like if our body gets sick, if we have a soreness in our body, if we stub our toe or something, the body will send white blood cells there to purify the blood or bring more blood into it. It doesn't send the brain down. It doesn't send like my consciousness isn't like, hey guys, I'm here to help you out. It's a very subtle thing. And
Yeah.
so I feel like
Yeah.
instead of coming in their true form, what happens is our star family, which is really versions of us or other beings who have our best interests at heart, will intervene in ways that are subtle. Like for me,
Yeah.
I understand that I'm really not from this star system. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I think the things in my life that have happened to me don't happen to everyone. I've just said a few things, but there's
But
a
yeah.
tremendous amount more that's like
Yeah.
goes without saying.
I can imagine.
And so we incarnate in this form, right? And then our star team, where we're truly from,
Mm.
assist us so that we can continue on with our mission. So I think that's how it happens. Instead of everyone's like, well, when are the ETs going to show up? It's like, well, how do you know they're not already here? Just
Mm.
not in a way that you have thought. Like the humans are they're so visceral. They're like, I need to see it. Like I need to touch it. If I can't touch it, if I can't see it, it's like source is so much cooler than that. Like if you listen to any of these kind of conversations, this isn't a normal human conversation. So what kind of intelligence do you think is speaking? Do you think that it's just a simple, basic, everyday human being that's like, all right, time to go to Walmart and gonna go watch some TV? Like, no.
Hmm.
So the ETs, the star beings, we're here. We've been here. It goes without saying. So
I love this.
yeah.
That just reminded me of this. This is, I don't know if you heard of Soho House, but like it's quite a cool
Seventh house?
Soho House.
No.
It's like this cool private members club, but like
Yeah.
one of the houses in Shoreditch is basically you can't tell that there's an entrance there. I remember when it first opened, and nobody
Mhm.
knew where the entrance was, and it was like really cool. And it was like what you
Whoa.
said, like sources. It's so much cooler than that.
So much cooler. It's so much more
Yeah.
simple and way more intelligent.
Yeah.
Like it's when I really think about all of this, I'm like, my goodness, like what a design plan. Like if you want to upgrade a race, you're going to send in aspects of higher dimensional essence into the human form in order to hold the code and frequency to deliver a message. But people will never suspect that you're anything else other than another human. All the while, you're radiating an energy that if they can pick up on it, through their own free will choice, it's going to be drastically impactful, you know?
I love that. I love this conversation.
Me too.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
and and who's to say that, with those experiences you've had with, beings working on you, who's to say that of course I really do feel like they're parts of you in your higher form.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's like, well, if that didn't happen, we may have just been subject to the basic human programming.
Hmm.
Like that might have been a contract that we had to get an upgrade, just like we like, okay, the car needs an oil change, I'm gonna take it in
Yes.
on Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, you know what, okay, Jess and Chris, all right, they've been down there for
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
30 years, we need to give them a little boost.
I love that. It's funny as well because it feels like there's like a pressure
Mm-hmm.
and like things
Mm-hmm.
are moving and it's like okay, okay, and I'm like okay, just stay still.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you had like out of body experiences and things like that
Like
that you remember?
I don't know because I feel like out of body experience is quite a broad term, because I feel like
Certainly is.
there's out of body, but then there's out of body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
You know?
Yeah, because I know because I've studied a bunch of different like avenues through the OBE community. One of the main symptoms is as you're falling asleep, if you can maintain, or if your consciousness, when I say your consciousness, I mean, right, you have your body consciousness, but then you just have your awareness, right? That's not Jess, it's not Chris, it's not Tim or Susie, it's just the observing principle of you.
Yeah.
If that can stay online as the physical form goes to sleep, you'll feel the shift from your physical body into your ethereal body. Like you can actually feel that
Oh,
happen. I
yeah.
felt I felt this a
Mhm.
couple times. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I think that is so true because that's where I feel it all happening. It's like above my body,
Yeah.
But then it's
Does it?
also yeah.
Yeah. Does it feel like does it all kind of start to like localize?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's like the beginning signs of an OBE. Not everything's ETs and aliens, guys.
I love
that's
that.
that's actually important. That's important to know because the more logical you can be and just common sense, that's actually really magical because it keeps
Mm.
people from being like, oh, like we of course it's so easy to just dismiss um something as profound as an out of body experience for like, oh, that's the aliens. Like, of course it could be, certainly, yes, but let's look at other things too to see if it's could be this as well, and then we'll compare the two and then we'll look for truth, and truth will reveal itself.
I
So,
love that.
like this is something that like really I've learned. It's like everything that goes bump in the night isn't a ghost.
Yeah.
Everything that shines in the sky isn't a starship.
Hmm.
Every sensation isn't a or what is it? What do people say? Like a ascension symptom.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's just your body speaking to you about something that it doesn't like that you ate. Like people need to keep it simple. But going back to that feeling, so like, okay, so basically, right now you and I are both more or less identified in these forms, and if we can relax enough, us as our truest essence will start to be like, oh, okay, the body's sleeping, I'm gonna go on a journey, i'm
Yes.
gonna go I'm gonna go travel. And what this feels like, at least for me, is like it sounds like a rocket ship. It's like this really intense sound. And that's literally the reverberation as your consciousness moves into another dimension. It does this every single night.
Wow.
And then for me, what's happened is like I feel all the energy like get right here, and then I literally like boom, like explode. But that explosion is really just like the upshift
Mm.
into the next oscillation or the next frequency of my being.
Mm.
And then from there, journeys can continue. I've seen some pretty cool things. I've rolled out of my body, which you're never really rolling out of your body. You're just shifting into your other form.
Yes.
And I've like rolled onto the floor, and it's like, oh, like it's weird. It feels very kind of like you feel lighter. But if you can imagine that, like, you're not in this density anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You start to move into your liquid light form. So yeah, I feel like that might be what you have experienced as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like I've had some different things, but it's not
Hmm.
really like clear. And also,
Hmm.
I don't normally see, it's normally just feelings and sensations.
Yeah,
I'm just like, all right, okay, here we go.
yeah, yeah. And as you go to sleep, you can just like I feel like one of the best places to materialize your reality is when you fall asleep.
Mhm.
Because when you're falling asleep, your ego mind is like, "Meow," right? And then
Yes.
the powerful you, the real big I is present.
Yeah.
So as you start to drift off, you can recite, I'm powerful, I'm peaceful, I want some ice cream tomorrow, whatever it is. Or I'd like to have an upgrade from my star team,
Hmm.
and really become a responsible sleeper. So even
Mm.
sleep, we have to become responsible for
Mm.
now.
Love that.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting is that, and I don't know, I feel like for me, when I was younger, there were probably other experiences that I have, but I don't really remember. And a lot of people, I think, they normally have this like moment in their adult life or something, you know what I mean? That really
Hmm.
shifts them into like, oh, recognition of something else. But it's like
Mm.
for you, it was literally throughout your entire life.
Yeah, it was throughout my entire life. I mean, even in college, whenever I was playing football, like at a Division 1 school, and college is kind of like whenever people either find themselves or lose themselves. That's how I see it. It's like if you go
Mm.
to an actual university, those universities most of the time are not meant to truly bring out your spirit. They're meant to suppress it and turn you into a corporation, a corporate worker, right?
Yeah.
So even in those years, things happened that were unexplainable.
Yeah.
And I want to tie this into your original question and insight about what's happening on the planet right now.
Yeah.
So what I have shared so far, if people can even feel into this just for a moment, just for a second, and really start to even perceive what it would be like to maybe have your higher identity roll out of your body, or perceive what it must feel like to be able to see your dreams play out in front of you. Like even just those two things, if you can allow yourself to just ponder that, a lot of the questions that the spiritual community seeks will be answered,
Hmm.
because we're all kind of, not all, but many people are seeking this kind of like other thing. And it really just takes a moment of pause and a stillness and an observation.
Yeah.
And so, and that will naturally help humanity progress. As humanity focuses more on those kind of phenomena and less on, what's happening in the Super Bowl, you know. So, but back to the two instances in college, which I'm tying into what I just said. Um, so I was dating someone at the time. Every day she was on the softball team. I was on the football team. Here we go. Yeah, and she would come over to my apartment every day before practice, and she would drop her keys on the table in the middle of the living room, like
Hmm.
verbatim every day. Drive over, drop the keys. We'd hang out, watch a movie, do whatever, eat some popcorn. Um, One day she came over, she dropped the keys on the table. We went in the kitchen to make pasta or something, and it wasn't a very big. It was like a 600 square. It was a very small apartment. It wasn't big by any means because you're in college and you don't really got that kind of money. Um, and she had to go to practice for her softball practice, so she couldn't stay long. So we started to make the pasta. She realized that she was a couple minutes late. She ran into the living room, and the keys were gone.
Wow.
She couldn't find the keys. Now, this is a very small apartment, one room, one kitchen, bathroom and living room are attached. Okay, it's very little. So I'm like, okay, well, they got to be here somewhere. Of course, the keys are here somewhere. Like we'll find them. They fell off the floor or something like that. And we look everywhere, under the cushions of the couch, in the room, in the kitchen, literally looked everywhere. So then we start to rationalize and think logically. Well, a mouse could have taken them. Okay, well, good chance a mouse isn't going to come out in the middle of the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and just jump on a table and take keys. But if it did, you would hear the jingling of the keys.
Yes.
Logically, if anything came in and took those keys, you would hear the jingling of the keys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And she starts crying because now she's going to miss practice. She's the starting pitcher, but we could not find those keys anywhere.
Wow.
Had to call her mom. Her mom came, picked her up, took her to practice. What we found out though is that the route she usually takes after she leaves, there was a huge accident.
Wow.
And had she have gone at the time she normally does, she could have been involved in that accident.
Yeah.
And so, we were both like, oh my God, like this is, like, you cannot make this up. And so I thought, you know what, once I move out in a couple of weeks here, change locations, I'm going to find the keys. Like, of course, I moved out, moved all the stuff, never found the keys. To this
Wow.
day, never found the keys.
That's crazy.
So that was one. Another time, cleaned my room, had this gray jacket that I used to wear, folded it, put it up in my closet, top shelf. I can still see the closet to this day with the jacket folded on there. Didn't have a roommate, locked the door because that was protocol whenever in college. You always lock the door behind you. You have your little ID card. You lock the door. That's just what you do. Come back half an hour later, no roommate. Door's locked. Come back into the room, and this still gives me chills to this day. The jacket is laid out on the bed, arms out, perfectly flat, zipped up perfectly on my bed. And I'm like, how is this possible? So, I mean, things like this have been happening my whole life, and I didn't need one kind of huge event to like shake me out of my
Yes.
cage.
Yes.
I'm grateful that I've had these experiences, and often it's hard for me to relate to the average person or even spiritual people because a lot of spiritual people are going off of the books
Oof.
that they've read. They're going off of what the teacher said. They're going off of what the guru said, what the mechanic said, but they lack direct, actual, multidimensional, interdimensional experiences. And so it's hard for me to really relate because my whole life I've had these things happen. And so it's why I tell people, like, all the context science stuff I've looked into has only been a reflection of my existence on this planet. And people will be like, oh yeah, I read that in the book. And have you read the book of Ra? I get this all the time. Have you read the Law of One? Have you read the book of Ra? And I'm like, nope. You sound a lot like that. I'm like, yeah, it's because truth is truth. And once you recognize that, once you can align with that and be that, the books start sounding like you, or you start sounding like the books, because it's one and the same. It's just that people who have embodied that frequency write the book, and others think it's some grandiose thing, but really all they did is tune into themselves and recognize the inherent truth. And so, yeah, I mean, direct experience, like actual direct experience, is always going to be triumphant for me.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah.
I know.
Um, I'm just really resonating a lot with what you're saying. I feel like, um, yeah, in a way, I think I've had a similar experience. Maybe not to the extent of the like out of this world or out of the ordinary experiences you've had, but I've just always felt this like deep connection, like since I was a kid.
Hmm.
And then, and I was just about to ask you as well about your journey through, learning through different information
Mm.
kind of touched on, but it was funny because I feel like as I was going into all these different teachings and stuff, it just also had, and maybe what you're saying as well, it's just like it was difficult to connect there because,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Hmm. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm just hearing you saying it, it's like, oh,
Now it makes sense.
yeah.
Now it makes a little bit more sense. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the key. That's it. Is that it clicks. That's something, and you don't need to pinpoint, but it's like,
Yes.
aha, that's
Yeah.
that thing.
And
Um.
also,
Hmm.
what you said about books,
Hmm.
like, I don't know what, it's so strange because people always say to me, oh, have you read this book? Have you read this? And I'm just thinking, what's this got to do with anything? Like, it's so weird. I'm just like, wait, why are they telling me about this book? You know, like,
What does it have to do with anything? I love that. It's true. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And this is what I'll say on books. That now that we're on the topic, now I love to read.
yeah, same.
This is the interesting thing. I actually love to read, and I love to understand things. Like I studied psychology, developmental psychology in college. Um, I was always fascinated with the brain, like how people, like how do humans think? Like what is the going on here? Now, I've read a lot of different books, a lot of different teachings, a lot of different modalities,
Yeah.
but they have come after I've had an event.
Yes.
Like hardly ever have I been like randomly been like, oh, like pick up. Like I've always had some sort of thing happen, then I would like to just have more information on, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, well, I wonder how that works, or whatever. And so the huge distinction I'd like to make for the people who will watch this, even just for you and I here, is that whenever you fall in love with a teacher, you're always going to miss the lesson, right? Whenever you always fall in love with like the information or the knowledge, it kind of pulls you away from the gnosis and the knowing and the being,
Mm.
right? Wisdom is not the same as knowledge. Knowledge can come from a book. Wisdom comes from the spirit.
Yeah.
Two different things, right? Knowledge can reflect and at sometimes enhance wisdom, right? The innate knowing, um, but where like you're saying, like, what's this have to do with anything? You know, I enjoy reading because it validates and it affirms my own experiences.
Mm.
Like I've been pondering gravity, and so now I'm reading on field theory, and some blanks are being filled in. But since I have a primer of already understanding a few certain things just from experience, um, this doesn't become my religion. It doesn't become like I need this. It doesn't become like my go-to. It's like something I can utilize as a tool, just like this crystal. It's beautiful. It's, it has its thing, but it's a tool. It's not something that is required by me or anyone else.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't want people to think that I'm like, never read a book again. You can't look at any information. It's like, of course you can. Of course you can read the teachings.
Yes.
But from what platform are you doing it from?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Are you doing it from a place of like, I don't know anything. I'm just kind of sitting here in the dark. And maybe some people are, and they do need that primer. Maybe that primer is found in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you know, but just remember that the books can only point to the sun. They are not the sun, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I feel like you want to say something. Go for
Yeah, no, it's
it.
so interesting. I remember like at the beginning of like I did have a big shift and I went to this philosophy class in London and I met this guy who was a bit older than me, like in his 50s. And I remember him saying something to me like, I'm so interested in you because I feel like you had an experience that's what led you here, but most people just come here to find the experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's it. That said perfect. Like, say it one more time. That's literally said perfect. That's perfect. Yeah,
I love it.
exactly it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
Can you
it's
actually say it one more time? Like that
so,
phrase right there?
if I can remember. Yes, basically, yeah. He was like, I came there because I had an experience.
Hmm.
That's what brought me there. But a lot of the other people were going there to find the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's wisdom. That's wisdom. And that right there will solve a lot of problems. But again, we go back to that R word, responsibility.
Mm.
So, you know, can people handle the responsibility of having an out of body experience? Can people handle the responsibility of seeing a starship? It drives some people crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, maybe on a soul level, on a higher level, some people simply are not ready to handle that duty of
Yeah.
knowing what it means to actually connect in real physical time with another being from another planet,
Yeah.
you know and I think this is specific to not a lot of people. um so the books hold their place, but again, they're not the experience themselves. Like, I can read all day long about how many dimensions they are and how they intersect, and what chakras do this, and what beings are doing that. But how is that going to translate into my everyday experience with source,
Yeah.
with the universe at large?
Mm.
And so, yeah, you went there because you had an experience,
Mm.
and you're just looking for some like dust to clear off and some clarity.
Yeah.
So you're not coming from what I call a negative one.
Mm.
A lot of people go into things from a negative one, meaning they're lacking something, they need something. And the last time I did math, if you start out with a negative one, you're never going to get to one. It does, you can keep trying to add, but you're starting from a negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so to start from a positive or a plus one would be conducive to someone simply recognizing that, yeah, I haven't, maybe I haven't had any experiences, but I can experience myself. I can't experience my own thoughts in this moment. I can't experience the way that the wind blows and the trees move, and the water all move at the same. If you notice, they all move at the same rate. The clouds, the water, and the trees are always moving, whether it's fast or slow. They're always moving at the same time. You can observe these things. You can experience looking at a flower without calling it beautiful, without saying it's pretty, without saying its color, just observing and perceiving the flower. And there's information in there that if you're putting a label and a category on that flower, oh, that's a beautiful flower, look at that rose, it smells so nice. Like, these are all identifiers of the mind to try to um, make our reality make sense. But what's there whenever we don't call something by a name?
Yeah.
And so maybe people aren't ready to experience ETs and
Mm.
um, deeper things like that. But every human has the ability to observe the reality just a little bit differently,
Mm.
and that wisdom um, is going to supersede what you find in a book. I'd say that every time.
Mm.
So then they'll be like you. They'll be going to the event at a plus one
Mm.
and able to integrate any other external thing that they feel resonates, right?
It's so interesting because I guess sometimes one might not necessarily know. You know what I mean? That they have what it is, what this, you know.
Yeah, it's true. It's a tricky dance, and I think that's why beings like you, like others like you, others like myself, are on the planet to not save anyone, but to say, yeah, you know what, there is something a little bit different we could do here.
Yeah.
um, and again, that's the whole intelligence of the creator. It's like, if it's going to upgrade itself, it needs to bring in aspects of itself to other places of itself that have forgotten that it is itself.
Yeah.
Did you follow all that? So they send in source sends in other even that word source, I've come to understand completely different too. That's a whole
Really?
other topic though. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's shifting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like it made a lot of sense because I feel like what happened is I was always going to these different teachings and these different groups, and it never clicked. It was just like, wait, but this doesn't make any sense. And I think
Hmm.
that's like one of the biggest reasons why.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, like, I just met a guy this weekend. He was a wonderful man. Family is great. And
Mm.
he said to me, I was talking, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's in this book," and it wasn't the Law of One. It was like, and it's something else. He's like, "Oh yeah, I learned that from da da da," and like I just kept hearing like, "I learned that from," "I learned that from,"
Wow.
you know, and it was like, okay, interesting, because where that's great, and it's gotten him to that point where he can recognize the deeper implications of reality. I'm just always a big component of like, come to the books secondary, you know,
Yeah.
because you now have a primer within you that is your intuition. Because like right now, contrary to popular belief, especially in some communities, base 12 is amazing. I agree with the math, and I actually really resonate with a lot of that.
Yeah, same.
But I've been looking into other things that some people would deem like, oh, that's fallen, or that's this or that. And I'm like, we can't just write everything off that doesn't fit a certain mold, because there's prime creator in all of it. And so I've been studying a lot about field theory and a lot of the deeper implications on gravity, and how light works and how sound works. And to some, that might seem like, well, that's just the base 10, and it's like, I went in that direction for a while. I was like, oh nope, I'm only dealing with base 12 and that's it. It's like, but now I feel like I've integrated the both of them to the point where I can understand that I can look at something base 10 and not be like, oh, I'm screwed, I'm done, oh my god, I'm there. It's like, so you have to have that inner purity and the innocence,
Mm-hmm.
in order to navigate different realms. Like, a child can talk to a complete stranger with no veil, not being afraid or scared. And this stranger could be an a-hole, right? But their innocence protects them.
Yes.
You know,
Ooh.
you see what I'm saying? And so they're not afraid to like look at it. And
Mm-hmm.
like, here's a good example. If the devil came up to the devil, uh, figuratively speaking, if the devil came up to me and he said, "You know what? You're wearing a blue sweatshirt," you know, and then let's say an angel came up to me and said, "You know what? You're wearing a pink sweatshirt." I feel like a lot of people would be like, they'd listen to the angel simply because of the title and quote the perceived status of the angel,
Mm-hmm.
instead of looking for truth.
Mm.
Because in that moment,
Mm.
the devil was telling the truth, but you can't see that because you're so wrapped up in the fact that it's the devil,
Mm.
right? And so the truth is unbiased. It doesn't care what avenue, it doesn't care who, it doesn't care what. It's just, it is what it is. And so we have to understand that when we're looking at different teachings, when we're looking at different mechanics, when we're looking at different things in the world, it's never about the external thing. It's always about you
Mm.
looking for that inner compass to ping
Mm-hmm.
whenever oh, that's it. Well, that's coming from someone who talks about base 10. eh True, you're right, but they're actually making sense right now, and I'm not afraid of it. It's okay, you know. And this is true for the food industry. It's true for any realm, really. It's like, if we can make truth and wisdom the most important um, guidance, then we're not afraid of any of it. We
Oof.
can literally take away what doesn't resonate,
Yeah.
but not be afraid to look into things that one group says is good, another group says is bad. You know?
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because I feel like it's huge at the moment. And you're
Mhm.
right, it's not just with this like base 12 teachings and everything.
Mhm.
It's everything. It's the whole world.
It's everything.
Everything that's going on right now. I feel like there's so much black and white happening,
Right.
and I feel like the whole purpose of this period is so that we can heighten our discernment, no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. I love how you take what I say and you just like one or two lines, simplified, boom, boom. I'm like, da 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 da. You're like, boom, boom, boom.
I love it, but it's good. I like how you're giving examples as well, because that's just.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And let's talk about the state of the world.
But
You
also,
know,
I just wanted to say as well that when it comes to books, I'm just really cautious now, and I think maybe what you said as well is what is resonating with me because I won't just go and read any book now. Like,
right,
you're just not doing that.
right. Of course not. It's like it's silly. There has to be a co-resonance there,
Yeah, but it's
right?
funny because last year when you were talking a lot about water,
Water. Yeah, yeah.
voyages, and that's the reason why I read the voyages as well.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. Yeah, I think the Voyages is great. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's, I
amazing.
know people say a bunch of different things, but it was a great primer for, and
Mhm.
again, you can discern and feel into. That's what I mean. Like, that's a big book to go into.
Yeah.
And if you just go into it like butt naked, like with no kind of inner awareness, no kind of discernment, you're gonna be pulled all over the place. Then
Mm.
you're gonna latch on to it because it's like, but Ashiana Dean said this and so said this. It's like you have to be the final decision maker over your
Yeah,
field, you know?
I feel like this is such an interesting topic because I feel like it's happening everywhere, and I feel like it's so interesting to see how it's so easy to get played with these dynamics.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think it's quite difficult actually to be able to come out and to not be afraid as well.
Yeah, that's again, it's the R word, responsibility.
Yeah.
It's taking radical responsibility for and just acknowledging, yeah, like right now in the world, it's intense to say, well, you know what, I don't want to get that medical procedure. Oh, I do want to get that medical procedure. And then you hear like I want to wear the face covering. I don't want to wear the face covering. It's like, well,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, at the end of the day, let's take person A who doesn't want to wear the face covering, person B who does. They both have had different primers. And I talked a little bit about this in one of my videos a couple weeks last week. Excuse me. um, it's not even really a spiritual thing. It's a scientific thing. It's a basic function of the brain thing. Like a lot of the reason people are having a tough time is because they're not really struggling with the external world. They're struggling with the fact that their higher consciousness is trying to tell them, like, you're running a program that was literally implemented to you through what's it called? Psychological manipulation. There's another word. I don't know, but it's like what they do to soldiers and stuff. They like brainwash them, but it's like a really like MK Ultra style.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone has been. Everyone's like, oh, the MK Ultra. It's like, yeah, you think it's just in those underground bases. It's in the news. It's
Yes.
how they have set up reality. They've used those experiments to say, okay, well now we can roll this out on a mass scale. And so now people think that they're thinking for themselves,
Yes.
but they're not. And they think that they're thinking rationally and logically, but they're not.
That's so true.
They're thinking based on the program that's been rolled out in front of them
Yeah.
through their everyday life that they have never, would never have guessed. Well, I'm just drinking this, or I'm just watching that. It's not a big deal. That's a lot of interesting patterns that keep showing up in your life as far as like the same colors, the same words that are being used. Like the world is magical. It's either you understand that and two things happen. You manipulate it for quote good, or you manipulate it for nefarious purposes, right? And so if people don't recognize the very fundamental functions of their brain, it doesn't matter how spiritual and how enlightened you are,
So true.
because I was so surprised by how many people I saw, wanting to do the face coverings and stuff like that. And again, I'm not saying they're bad people, but I was like, it just showed me how many people were actually still under the spell.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So interesting to
yeah.
see.
It's so interesting, and yeah, it's so funny because there are others who are just like, no, like,
Yeah. I'm good,
yeah,
right?
it's not
And
happening.
well, what do you think that is? Why do you think some people, or what do you think the people who just say no, what's how why how is that possible
Yes, good question.
with them?
I think there's a level of understanding of being able to see the deeper truths of what's taking place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
'Cause-
how do they escape the programming then?
yeah, how are they able to see it? I was just gonna
Yeah,
also mention that to you because you, like you were saying, with the programs that we're all running, like we're all being brainwashed. If you don't know what you don't know, so
you don't
yeah,
know what you don't know.
how do you come to the? Yeah, it's really interesting. Nicole as well. I just interviewed this doctor, and literally said that she started to realize that her thoughts were actually just this manipulation that weren't actually her thoughts.
They're not. This is probably this could be the most important part of this whole conversation. Because
Wow.
there's a lot of people on this planet who are not connected to their soul matrix. You're not talking to an actual human being.
What do you
You're
mean?
talking to what's that?
What do you mean by that? The soul matrix. Just.
Or their spirit matrix. So sentient consciousness, higher self. What I mean is,
Hmm.
if you pay attention, you have conversations with people, and some of them will say the same thing over and over.
Yes.
Or you'll
Yeah.
talk to them one day, you meet with them a week later, and they tell you the same story. It's like, you just we just talked about this. And it's not that they forgot; it's just that they're on a loop. It's because they're not pulling in, or they're not emanating organic thoughts. And so the I said this the other day. The most trickiest sense that we have is our eyes. We think that we can see, but we're completely blind.
Yeah.
And there's a movie called They Live. I don't Have you
Yes,
seen
I've
that
seen that.
movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's happening. And we're not actually physically putting on goggles or glasses that make us see people's true forms. It's a resonance, it's a frequency that you have to be able to tune into, or you can't. So what
Yes.
I mean is,
Yes.
yeah,
That's it.
people, that's it. People, but this is why people can't, okay? Because this grand harvest and this, because all that cosmic stuff, there is some deep truth to it. Just like on this planet, we have to eat food to survive. Well, as above, so below, right? We all kind of know this.
Yeah.
And if you are it doesn't even matter what kind of being. It could be just, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're a thing that operates and feeds on energy, and you have a race of beings who have very high coding, just because that's how they were created over yeah, right, exactly. Over time, um it's no different than if I have a piece of pizza, and I figure out that pizza is really good. I'm gonna go to the store, or I'm gonna make that pizza again, and then I'm gonna save some, put it in the fridge or the freezer, right, to harvest it for later. So what's happened on this planet, we're seeing in this time right now, a lot of the souls are just the leftover pizza, meaning they're not connected to their actual energy centers, higher functions. And so they have accepted a program that they have picked up either from a previous harvesting cycle, and they've reincarnated,
Hmm.
and they're just still running that same pattern, or they have just picked up on the base programming of this reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you're talking to people, really start to pay attention. Don't go crazy with it, like, oh my God, just, if it comes up, it comes up. Just kind of observe, is there a spirit that's speaking to me? They don't have to know all the cosmic stuff, but there's a level of like gentleness, a level of kind of like um sentience that you can feel, right, from people who are still connected to their spiritual matrix. And they could still be eating McDonald's and drinking and all this stuff, but they could still be connected to their spiritual matrix. Then you can have people who are spiritual, but they're not connected to the spiritual matrix, because the second you
Yeah.
say something,
Yes. Yes.
the program comes up and you're like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? Right? It's a
Mm.
very tricky thing that's happening to humanity right
It
now.
is so tricky and intricate
Mm-hmm.
and unexpected, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we like continue on and we engage with people, my goal isn't to like have every single being on the planet move into the next density or the next harmonic universe. My goal is to spark the ones who can pick up on the frequency. And then if they choose to move on, they do. If they don't, they don't,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I feel like that's an important reminder, even for myself, you know? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
how it's kind of gonna happen, really, you know?
Yeah. So I have a question for you. What do you think that, so you see things rolling out the way they are, we had the medical procedure going down, we had the face coverings, we had the supposed war. Um, what do you see happening like with like, let's not talk about the sect groups of people who are choosing to make the choice to move on or to be responsible, but what do you think is going to happen with the people who don't, or
Mm.
who haven't made that choice?
I know it's really interesting. I feel like, yeah, I've heard a lot about this bifurcation, you know, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I've started to feel it more in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like relationships, I really
Mm-hmm.
feel like some people like I've just I don't really speak to them much anymore, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
just gonna
Mm-hmm.
go different paths. But I don't know. It's really interesting. I think I feel like there must be some of them that are gonna realize at a later date. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. At the next party. Oh, I forgot my, whatever. I forgot my snack. Hold on, I'm coming. Yeah,
Yeah. But
it's
actually,
true.
what I've heard is that there's a different process for them.
Mm,
They go through this regenesis.
yeah. It's interesting because back in 2016, I wrote something called The Great Split. And this is
Wow,
before I
yeah.
came. Do you remember me writing about that on Instagram?
No, but that's just totally what I've heard that recently.
I can go get it to you. And if we have time, I could read what I wrote back then
Yeah.
and see how resonant it is like for what's happening right now.
Mm.
It's just right here. It'll take me like 30 seconds. So, so again, this is very, very relevant because history repeats itself until someone throws, like, the wheels of history repeat themselves until someone decides to throw a wrench in the gears and stop it. So, meaning people have to take actions, beings have to take action to really see different results take place. All right, so I wrote this, and we're talking about kind of this bifurcation and this splitting of timelines. I wrote this back in 2016. I called it the Great Separation. Um, wow, right on time. It's kind of choppy here, so I have to like sift through it. But it
Mhm.
does no good trying to change the world. The world is on its own evolutionary track. Collaborate in small groups, find those of like minds, and begin to form and tend to the earth. Live in love and respect. Base your life in fundamental understanding. That's interesting. I swear, every time I read this, I'm like, so I remember, and like something clicks every single time. Um, and fundamental understanding of unity and cooperation. Let those who seek love and respect find you.
Oof.
Yeah, like the dead branches of a tree, those who do not resonate in dignity, unity, truth, and respect, and love will fall away, giving room for adequate growth. Okay,
Yeah, that
and
feels
then
like it's been happening.
that's it, right? So you don't have to chase anything. There's nothing to go after.
Yeah. I feel like at one point it felt a bit like, ah, and then it
Of
was,
course,
you know?
yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I think we need to normalize that change doesn't feel good.
Ooh, yeah.
I think we need to normalize that transitions are intense and tough and messy, because I think we hold this expectation of like, oh, we're transitioning into the 12th dimension and we're moving to the next harmonic universe and everything's, it's like, what you're basically saying is everything that this species has known for the last couple 100,000 years is about to be changed. And that is going to take an adjustment period. And we are just coming into that phase within this lifetime where that adjustment is just beginning.
Yes.
So we're talking, I don't want to put a time on it, but I feel like this is my last time here. If I ever come back, it's going to be completely different, but I can't imagine that if it's taken a couple 100,000 years to get us to this kind of tumultuous point, that it's not going to take another extended amount of time to kind of undo all that. I mean, it could go much faster. It could go much faster actually.
I find it so
Yeah,
interesting. I feel like so many people have said that I'm not coming back here. I feel like it's
yeah,
got to be something in that, you know. I've heard the amount of people that I've heard say that.
yeah. Has it come from different avenues, different people, like different kinds of like, um,
Yeah.
um, or is it just like only a certain group of people that you've heard it from
No, like all over.
all over?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of us aren't from here.
Yes.
I mean, if if I live in this house and then I go to um, New Zealand and if I stay in New Zealand to do something, maybe help people there, I'm always going to have some like resonance to this home, and I'm
Mm.
going to know that New Zealand is like, it's only temporary. So the feeling of not coming back here for me is really about like, it's not necessarily like home is out there in the stars, like it's on planet such and such. I mean, for me, not coming back here means I will exist in a space where harmony truly is at the center of everything,
Mm.
and love really is at the center of everything, where we don't have to, meditate to send away chemtrails, where we don't have to be concerned about picking up a piece of lettuce and having it be sprayed with all kinds of nonsense. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean whenever I say I'm not coming back here. Now, I do have a very vivid memory of how I got here, like actually to this planet.
Wow.
Um, and I'll never forget like the moment that all came into my field. So I actually remember where I came from. So I guess there's that literal sense that this is not where I came from. That, yeah.
What? Yeah, inception point, right?
What
It's
do you
like,
mean?
I think some people call it that the inception point,
Mm,
like when the original incarnation.
yeah. Well, no, no, I hear you. I'm just thinking like the original incarnation of like this being, or like of a being.
Yeah, of like the soul, I think.
Do you want to hear my theory on the soul?
Oh yeah, yeah, I do actually. But
Before I
also, what do you
continue
mean?
to, yeah. So really quickly on that, because I like where this is going.
Yeah, I know.
I'll read this in a second. We'll come back
Awesome,
to,
awesome, awesome. Yeah.
world events in a moment. Back to the stars now. Stay focused. No, we need to talk about the cosmos. So I've come to understand that, remember I said earlier that source has taken on a different kind of
Yes, yeah, yeah.
connotation? So I don't know if I'm the only one, but sources, like at the beginning, not too long ago, source has always been kind of
Mm.
this like abstract energy that's kind of like all encompassing. There's no name. It's kind of in you. It's kind of in everything, but there's no real, like, you can't put your finger on it, which I agree with, right? Um, but I also hear people use like, source will provide, the universe will get my back, which is again, choosing to not be responsible.
Yes.
And so Jesus, source, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, you can put them all in the same basket and you're going to get the same result. Anytime we depend on a thing to do something for us, we're not self-generating. So it's like, well, source will provide, or source has me covered. Okay, great, but that's a word that you're using, but what's the energy behind that? What are you actually saying?
Mm.
A lot of times what people are actually saying is that something is going to happen. I can kind of sit back and it's going to kind of all happen,
Mm.
right? So I like the concept of a source, but for me, now, where I'm at currently in this space in my journey, is understanding that everything actually, there is truly an interconnectedness to everything. And as I've been studying field theory and just through my own experiences, you come to understand that, like, the ether, right? So the ether, or the ethernet I talk about. Well, you have the internet, then you have the ethernet. Well, what's the internet? It is a web that connects cell phones and towers and people. What's the ethernet? Well, let's apply the same analogy to that, except without the cell phone and towers. Well, what is that? Well, it would be a web of energy that is literally all encompassing and uniting everything. Well, science calls that the unified field, but we're still looking for the God particle. Well, okay, is the fish in the ocean looking for that one drop of water to find the ocean? It's never going to find it, is it? No. Why? Well, because the ocean is all around it. It is in the ocean. So, source. Well, source will have my back. Well, you are source. There's no separation between your thought patterns and source. There's no separation between your spirit and source, right? So when you understand the ether and what it really is, I really feel that where souls come from, is the ether, or the substratum of all things, focusing in a specific space, or just condensing itself into a not like an atom or anything, but it basically brings its energy, like it what's the word, it condenses its energy, right? And once it does that enough, it now holds all the information of itself. It's basically like, if I were to take my hand and to like kind of like pinch it here, right? And then I pinch it here, and then I pinch it here, right? So now these are all individual souls. And once enough of this source ether energy condenses enough, it becomes a being. It is a being now, right? And so we are all, I feel like souls are being born all the time. I don't think it's a one-stop thing. I think it's an ongoing process. And so some of us have direct memories of their first kind of like cohesion point from that substratum. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at with like what spirits are, like spirits that have never had an incarnation, and then find themselves in a space is like, what the heck is this body? Does that make sense? Are
I
you
think so.
following me?
What did you say here? That's what spirits are. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think spirits are the condensed version of source, of the ether.
And when you say spirit, what do you mean?
Mhm. Like the essence of what we are,
Okay.
like the principle, like the consciousness,
Okay.
the thing that is not the body,
Yeah.
right? Does that make sense?
I like what you said about like trying to relinquish your responsibility with saying, "Oh, source will provide," and
Mm-hmm.
because I do think there is something there with the understanding, and I guess it reminds me of the whole thing of like co-creation.
That's what I was going to get at. Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for it, you are an active participant with
Yeah.
consciousness now, instead of just like, I'm going to sit back and source. Good luck over there.
Yeah, and maybe that is the like I don't know, maybe it's a misunderstanding of what like God is, I guess, really.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. That's what I meant. Exactly what I meant. Is that
Yeah.
it's nothing separate from you. It's something you are, and that you can co-create with, and it
Mm.
has different attributes of itself. Like it's like, even in this moment, my words are not fitting what I'm seeing and feeling, but
Yeah, it's difficult to use words
yeah,
a lot of the
it's
time.
like the understanding of, we could do this, right? Source is this hand is source. This hand is like the independent being who has some sort of existence that somehow was like, birthed from source. We're over here now. I'm one with source. Yeah, I'm one with source, and source is amazing. I'm going to depend. Hey, source over there, help me out. I need your assistance, right? Or we do this. This is source. Here I am. Here you are. Here so and so. here's the ET, here's some other being, here's a well. And so now, whenever I say source and co-creation, we're all connected already, right? So I'm not waiting for source to do anything. I'm operating as that energy that is everlasting and sustainable. And that truly is connected to everything else. Instead of, I'm the being on the planet who come from planet blah, 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 and I'm going to depend on source way over there. Source way over there. Star friends way over there. It's like, no, this is consciousness as a unified field. It doesn't mean that, this pinky over here has forgotten. Maybe it's made decisions where it literally has created the illusion of separation. And so thumb has to be like, hey, dude, remember? No, I'm this being and I'm here to destroy the planet. It's like, all right, you can keep playing out that game, and source is never going to cut itself off from itself. So even the most diabolical beings are still a part of that fabric, although they create the illusions and the manifestations and the materialized events that would make it seem like they're not a part of that fabric. And so what happens in the psyche of humanity is that we start to do this. Well, that's the Draconians, and that's the Anunnaki. That's the president, and that's the freedom for whoever those people. And so we start to do that. And it's not that we are condoning their behaviors as okay or acceptable, but there's a deeper wisdom.
Yes. Oof.
That whenever you're not combative with the decisions and the forgetfulness of beings, you can now generate and create your energy, and it starts to make what they do obsolete. It starts to minimize their ill-intended, because you can never destroy source, you can never destroy consciousness. You can never be separate from it.
I love this. I feel like there's some things to unpack.
Oh my god, yeah, we'd have to do like 15 more interviews.
But it's I feel like what you're describing is kind of like a I don't know, diagram to explain like what's going on at the moment.
It is.
And I feel like a lot of the time it's so easy. This is what I find so interesting, because it's like, how do we really find unity? And even though we can understand that there is evil and it does exist, and they've decided to disobey the laws and go down that path and disconnect from source, but then at the same time it's like, are you in that moment also perpetuating the separation? Do you know what I mean? And it can be very confusing, because it's like, how do I encompass all of it?
Well, that's it. See, you just said it, but you just literally said the answer. You said the answer. How do I encompass all of it? By encompassing all of it. By not denying any of it. And not holding expectations of it, by allowing it to be what it is. Because what's the quote? The path of least resistance. Nature takes what? The path of least resistance. It doesn't say nature ignores, nature bypasses. Nature takes the path of least resistance.
Wow.
Right? It's all very simple. It's always been here. So what they've done, and it's funny because this is called the Great Separation, right?
Oh yeah.
It's okay, because this needs to be talked about. What they've done is, on a scientific level, they've told us that molecules are here, and protons and neutrons, and light travels at a speed. You don't understand how deep this, people don't understand how deep this program is of separation, of illusion of separation. We really think that somehow, light is traveling from one space to another, and that there's some sort of magical particles moving around the universe that, makes things happen. It's not that complicated. That's way too complicated. Scientists are spending eons of money trying to figure out reality. But what they're doing is undermining and denying the ether and the fact that every single thing is actually interconnected. And so, on a scientific level, if you're telling the world that particles and this separate, atoms and molecules, your psyche is picking up on separation. right? So at your core atomic structure, you're separated from the sun, from the light, from, source. And so now we have to understand that it's not about they shouldn't be doing this. It's
Yeah.
about understanding that, okay, I was just very, earthly example, I guess. But I went through a time where I wasn't seeing my daughter for years, right? Just this last 2 years, I haven't seen her for years. And I was fighting against this. I was very upset, crying, holding in emotions, affected my life. A lot of people don't know about this because I don't talk about it because it's, it's not fluffy and it's not nice, but it's a part of my human experience. Um, and so I'd wake up some nights and have dreams and start crying because I haven't seen my daughter. And I spoke to one of my friends and she's like, Krys, like, why are you trying to control it? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is my daughter. Like, ah. And she said, if her mother wants to do what she's doing,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's literally that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found in there brought me back to a stargazing experience I had where I was really missing my star family. And they said, like, true connection isn't physical. True connection isn't physical. We can't control things. We can only co-create things.
Oof.
You're either co-creating with the ether and with source, or you're living the illusion that you can somehow control it and have it, at your disposal. So me as a father, this is a very real example I had to learn, that I had to let go of the desire to have it be a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what was creating the suffering.
Yes.
The suffering wasn't created because I haven't seen my daughter, because true connection isn't physical. Because we're always, 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 always connected to everything and like, I can't get into the science, but it is fundamentally cosmically sound. It can't be any other way. There's no dualities in nature, right? There's no dualities in the cosmos. There's only different attributes of source. Just like ice, water, and steam are one thing.
Yeah.
You would never say to someone, hey, I have an ice cube. Well, I have a bucket of water. Oh, that's cool. It's like, no, ice is water, is steam. Right? So that's what we're talking about. It's like, okay, people are doing things in the world, and us fighting against that is different than us being co-creative with what we'd like to see unfold. Right? Literally being the change. So when you release control, you can like really melt into divine will and harmony. And I have a great ending to this story. Is the second I did that, within a week I had a visit with my daughter.
Wow.
Because it's all internal.
That was your lesson, yeah.
That was my lesson, is like, you can't control it. There's nothing for you to control, you know.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I've noticed a lot lately. When people are just, I don't know, perpetuating drama.
Don't I ever. You know that I know. Yeah.
It's so funny because it's like, I just feel like people be like, yeah, but da-da-da-da, and this, and da-da-da-da, and it's just like, wait, hold up. Why your reaction is creating the drama? Like, just stop, just drop it, just, you know what I mean? It's just like, that is the drama, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that goes back to, like, whenever source focuses its energy, that's where it is.
Yeah,
That's where it is. That's what's materialized. And it's very
yeah,
simple.
yeah,
Ask any kid to just think about the tip of their finger. Their finger will start to tingle.
yeah,
Simple. If
yeah.
you focus your awareness on the tip of your nose, your body starts to create sensations at the tip of your nose.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
how's it any different than, so and so? It's like, I'm aware of it. We're not blind to it. Again, we're not like, oh, don't want to look at it, can't see it, no, don't show me. It's like, I'll look at it directly in the eyes and be like, you know what, that's your choice. here we go.
Exactly. Yes. But
Right.
I like it because your understanding of source now, and it's like taking the responsibility and then allowing the divine flow, like you said. And
Yes.
I really like the non-attachment, even though even
Mm-hmm.
that can have different understandings. But to me, it's just like letting go. It's surrender. It's
It's
allowing,
surrender.
you know,
Yeah.
things to just happen.
Yeah. And it's like a trust. It's like a deep trust
So true. Yeah.
because we've been screwed over so many times.
Mm.
And I think Rochelle was talking about this the other day. It's like how'd she say it? It's like, are our core desires and needs actually our, like, is that actually what we're, moving from? Are we moving from still that superficial ego mind that, like,
Yeah.
I need to see my daughter, I need to see this,
Yeah.
I need to have this happen. It's like, okay, you still are an eternal, powerful, multidimensional being. You don't need anything,
Mm.
but you can allow and have this deep trust that, like, I thought about this the other day, like, all right, all these worries and all this, financial concerns. It's like, wait, you know, I'm never just going to let myself like be down and out. Like, you know, the creator, prime creator, source, ourselves, we're not going to be like, all right, you're done. Like, oh, that's it. You're screwed. It's like, we truly are always taken care of if we can allow that energy to be present. But we can't be present with it if we're trying to like make it happen. If we're trying to control it. Does that, it's like a very fine
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, I think also what you were saying before about just relinquishing the responsibility and say, oh yeah, but source got me, da 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 da.
Right.
It's like a balance of understanding that when you allow the flow and you can trust that it's like a play that both, it's like it encompasses both sides. So you have to play a big role, but at the same time, you know, it's like what they say as well. It's like when you merge those together, then that's when you're living your purpose, and that's when
Mm,
you know. But if it's your ego, like you say, it's trying to drag you in this direction, then it's you're not going to get what you want. But when you what you want is completely aligned, then
ooh, yes, that's so powerful. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's not denying any of it. Like you said earlier, it's not denying any of it. It's encompassing all of it. It's understanding that you do have tools and
yes,
technologies as a spark of the all. Yes, you do. And it's like, kind of like if you're driving a car and you, I don't know, if it's like if you're like turning the wheel, but like, I don't know. And that's that. Never mind. That's a bad example. It's not coming to me. Basically, you said exactly perfectly. You
yeah.
can't fight against it,
Yes,
but you can take the action required in the
yeah,
direction that you want to see, from
mm,
an understanding that it will be provided for because that is your intention,
yes,
right? That's it. It's like, okay, well, I like to generate more income or whatever it is. Instead of like, oh, I'm scared, where's the money going to come from? It's like, okay, well, let me start doing things
hmm,
and allow this to be my divine prayer and trust that that is going to happen. I don't need to fight or struggle to get it.
hmm,
I'm moving in alignment. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's
spot
way,
on.
it's way more powerful. Like I feel like it's like a whole. It's this is like an initiation, stepping into your power, and
Mm-hmm.
and it requires a lot of responsibility. Like you keep saying, you know.
Responsibility and trust. I mean, that's been the message.
I
And
love
yeah, our star friends don't really care much about like the fact if we find free energy or if we understand anti-gravity. They don't really care about that. Like, to them, that's like a cell phone.
Mm,
Could you imagine um finding some barbarians and being like, here's a cell phone? Like, no, like, that's not going to be the main focus. The main focus is going to be like, hey, let's get you guys a house, and let's get you guys to stop eating each other and eating all and being crazy. And so, like, I feel like the main focus of our star friends is that we become more responsible with our consciousness and how we treat each other.
mhm. Yeah.
Everything else is a byproduct. Like, some humans are so fascinated with technology and so fascinated with like upgrades of iPhones. It's like, maybe that's part of the problem, is that our interpersonal reactions, did I say reactions? Yes, reactions and interactions, um, need to be addressed before we can ever really think about star travel and things like this,
Mm.
so
Yeah,
responsibility is so key.
I totally feel that. I think I was even just going to bring something up about that. Because I feel like a lot of the time you can have like a lot of information and knowledge, but then sometimes I've noticed there's a bit of a lack of emotional intelligence, I guess I'm going to call it.
Yes, yes.
And then I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Because
Mhm.
if we're supposed to be going to this other like dimension, density, whatever, how surely we need to have this down, Otherwise,
Whew.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, could you imagine giving a 2-year old a laser gun or something like that? Like, no, you don't know what to do with that. So,
Mm.
yeah, so there at maturity, like I think that the key words from this interview right now are responsibility,
Mm.
trust, and maturity.
Mm.
You know, you have to have some sort of responsibility, trust in divine will, and trust in yourself, and you have to be mature enough to handle this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
like the term you used earlier, spiritual maturity.
spiritual maturity, because there's a lot of spiritual, like, again, like using the term high vibration, like, I got my crystals and I got my teachings and I got this, and it's like, okay, well, if we talk about this tough topic, can you actually sit with me and feel this energy,
Mm.
and actually be mature enough to handle the intense frequencies that might arise within you to
Wow.
actually communicate with me? Like,
Yes.
cool, your crystals are great, but like, you know, let's not suppress it either. Let's actually be mature enough to talk about this and come to a conclusion.
Because
Right. So
that's,
yes.
I
Hmm.
feel like that's ultimately what happens. I feel like this is all we're doing here, Like we
Hmm.
have conversations with very social beings. So
Hmm.
it's like and the energy is being transmitted and received, and then sometimes you have this reaction and you feel it, and then it's like, can you communicate in?
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to have that functionality. Humans are. This is why when I started earlier, the heart center, like the
Yeah.
fourth, like that's the key. Because if we're still thinking with our lower functions, I read recently that the ego wasn't created as a part of an identity. The ego was created for species and beings, to survive, like
Yeah.
in crazy
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hear a lot of like, well, the ego is just your identity. It's like, not really. It's maybe a part of me, but it's not my identity. And if you think about it, that fight or flight conversation, people get super intense to like jump to it, like defend their belief. It's like, well, you have a belief. It's not what you are. Like,
Yeah.
I could say, I believe that, I'm a dark skinned man. It's like, well, that's not who and what I am. It's a aspect of the being,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know? And so when we attach ourselves to these beliefs, whenever they're challenged, like if you really want to know how integrated someone is, challenge their beliefs.
Mm.
Have a conversation, like literally, um, try to debunk their conversation and their viewpoints and their belief systems. Because you'll see two things. Either one, they'll be able to have an intelligent conversation about it and go back and forth and rationalize and create theories and hypotheses with you in the name to find the truth, or they'll try to bite your head out because you've offended them.
Mm.
And so that tells me a lot about where people are at. It's like, can you actually talk about this perspective without it throwing you off your boat?
Yeah, and it's reminding me of Nicole again, what she was saying, because she basically was a doctor and she just trusted everything. And then she came into realizing what was really going on. But the reason why was because she had such open curiosity.
Yes.
So I feel like when you have a conversation with someone, it's like there's something about that, just to be able to be.
Yeah. It's true, just to talk. And how many people,
Yeah.
how many people, how many people actually have conversation versus regurgitation?
Mm.
There's a big difference between actually being able to sit. How are you today? I'm good. Like, go to the store almost every time. How are you? Good. Like, I say the cash registers, I say, are you actually good? Or, you know, And you'll be surprised at how that changes the dynamic. And
Yeah.
so just going back to what you said about Nicole, it's like being an open skeptic is very healthy,
Yes.
because like again, that word truth keeps coming up. If
Mm.
humanity wanted truth versus conformity, comfortability, and luxury, the world would be drastically different. But so many people are wounded and scarred and afraid that the truth seems scary, not because the truth in and of itself is scary, but because it seems scary,
Mm.
because their whole world is now like, what do you mean I can heal myself? Like, okay, well, what have I been doing this whole time? Like, what are those medications? Wait, what do you mean if I eat this, that's going to happen to my body? Like, and it again, it requires a huge level of maturity. And I
Mm.
think the way we can get to that is having intelligent conversation without trying to, I know I said this earlier, but without trying to debunk people,
Oof.
but with trying to bring
Ugh.
clarity and just openness, and
Yeah.
really just love. Just be loving in your conversations.
Mm. Yeah, man, it's so true. I wanted to also just, you were talking about earlier about, base 12 and like, but I feel like sometimes within that kind of community there can be a lot of debunking. And
Mm.
yeah, sometimes it can be just a bit like, whoa, intense maybe.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
found this thing the other day, and I just thought I should just hear what you think about this. It's so interesting because basically it was around the idea of the siphoning energies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then this is also something I always thought like, okay, that makes sense. People say the moon is harnessing your energy, but like how? You know what I mean? Like how does that actually do
Ow.
it? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was
Mm-hmm.
basically saying that it happens when you give your power away,
Mm-hmm.
and that can happen in different ways. So it can be you idolizing something and saying this is
Mm-hmm.
the be all and end all because now you're not taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But then it can also work in the other way when you see it and you're afraid of it. Oh, I can't look at, you know what I mean? I can't. Da, 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 da.
Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm.
And then something you said earlier about realizing that actually it's you, and basically if you connect with the highest like source
Mm-hmm.
of the other being, like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying about the innocence with the child,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, then you're gonna be fine. Doesn't
Right.
matter, you know?
Yeah. You'll be able to walk. This is why in the Bible it says, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and I'm not afraid because the Lord is with me.
Mm.
That's what that means. It's, you can be anywhere. And I heard a rapper say once, like, something like, yeah, like along those same lines, like I can be anywhere, and I'm not afraid because God's with me.
Mhm.
And what people do is they want to anthropomorphize God, or Lord, or they want to say it's an Anunnaki being, or they want to say it's like whatever being, or Pleiadian. What, doesn't matter what word you use, but those phrases are all metaphorical. Almost all of ancient text is like metaphorically speaking about something very, very simple, right? And based on the culture, based on the conditioning of the people at the time, they're going to call it different things. But the reason you can look at something like base 10, or you can look in these different kind of seemingly darker or bad things, you can only really, really do that if you're fully integrated.
Mm.
Not fully integrated like you have it all figured out, but integrated enough to the point where, like you said, you're not afraid of it. Because I've been learning things about uh, you know gravity and stuff like that that I haven't heard in any community. But the one I found it in, it was a, people would say it was a base 10 one, but if I had written that off, oh, it's base 10, then nope, can't talk about it. Not, it's like, understand the base bare minimum principles of these technologies and how they operate. But again, like I said, if the devil walked up to me and he said, "Hey, you have a blue hoodie on with a white and a gray stripe," I would say, "Yes, you're correct," because that's the truth.
Mhm.
So it's not base 10, it's not base 12, it's truth.
Mm.
And then you allow truth to tell you which, in which way you're going to swing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
It's so interesting because I feel like that is such a huge thing, and then some people would say, yeah, but if I know that it's trying to harness my energy, then why would I even go there? You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. So it's like this, like, I use this example all the time. Like, if I'm going to walk across the street, what am I going to do? I'm going to look both ways. Why? Because it makes common sense to do that.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm not afraid of the street. I'm not afraid of the car. It's just I have this body and I don't want it to get hit by the car. It's just basic, very basic common sense.
Mm.
And so yeah, I mean, you become responsible. It's like if the moon is harvesting your energy, of course, don't sit there and worship the moon. But oh moon, I know you harvest my energy, but I love you so much. It's like you just know how to dance and move with things now. That's all it really means. It's like now
Mm.
you know how to move with things and you can pick and choose. All right, I can read this article. Okay, that's bullcrap, bullcrap, bullcrap. That makes sense. Boom. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
um, I resonate
Oh.
much more with the sun. I always have. I think the sun
Yes.
is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I notice different things happen whenever it's a full moon, for sure.
Mhm.
You can draw awareness from that, and then you can now have that awareness to make different choices. You know, it's not that you just cut it off, ignore it, blah, blah, blah. It's like when it shows up, how do you meet the pain?
Oof.
And
Yeah.
then over time, it becomes less and less painful because
Mm.
surely but slowly you're just building up your strength and you don't even need it. It just doesn't mean anything to you. Like one day again, these cell phones that cause so much radiation and stuff like that, they'll be laughable. But for now, they serve their little tiny purpose and cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally feel that. Yeah, I think what I reflect on with it is like, how do I make sure I'm not creating this like division within myself when it comes
Mm,
to everything? You know what I mean?
yeah, because I think that's what I experienced a lot in a lot of those different communities that you were speaking about. It's no different than any other religion. It really isn't. And this isn't all the people, and this is for any kind of container that has it all figured out. One, no one has it all figured out because source is ever expanding and reality is an ever shifting thing, right? There are base principles that I do agree with, but living the life of like that's a good example. Like for example, like my daughter wants to watch this show and it's like number blocks, like base 10, like literally teaching the base 10 number block system. So I have that awareness to know that that's literally a program. She's not going to know that, but I understand that that's how that technology is programmed into kids by putting into cartoon fancy colors. And so I just say, hey, we can watch a different show, or we can do some other counting or something like that. And if she says okay, great. But if she says no and she watches the show, it's not the end of the world. It's like, I know that she's going to be okay, but I also know that I have a choice to impact her in a different way, um, that might be more beneficial, but I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, turn your eyes away from the screen, like, because then you're kind of, yeah, you're screwed at that point because now,
Mm.
yeah, you have no power.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing I learned is that it's a thing about putting the power out you. So it's like all of a sudden there's this person that's sending the information. What I've learned is to just take the information that makes sense and just let go of everything. It's not about the person. It's not
It
about
never is.
where it came from or what anything. The truth and the information can come to you in the most peculiar ways. You know.
Seriously, like, yeah, because our eyes trick us. Like we think that, like, oh, that's the teacher, they studied this. I tell people all the time, like, my greatest success is going to be whenever people don't need peaceful human advancement. Like I really intend that humanity, like everything I do, if any people are part of any of my containers, any of my private groups, it's all about self-sustainability, self-regulation. right? And then co-creation. It doesn't mean people don't have needs and stuff like that. It's like, but we're not coming from a place of lack. It's coming from like, literally, if I don't drink water right now, I might actually die of dehydration or something silly like that. You know, we help each other out, and it's organic and it flows. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Getting back to your point of
The information can come in the most peculiar ways.
oh yes, so like don't fall in love with the teacher. And like I said again, you know, the devil said I have a blue hoodie on. It's correct, and it's because people blind themselves and they think that the teacher has it all figured out. Almost every teacher I've come across, like they got shit going on too. You know, their life isn't perfect either. My life isn't perfect. You know,
Yeah.
um, it's about trusting yourself really and having that inner. Like I use the example, if I have, let's say, I don't know, the color blue, like within my heart is the color blue. Okay. And outside of me, I see, I've never seen the color blue before my whole entire life. Let's say I've never seen the color blue, but in my heart, you know, I have this resonance with the color blue. I don't actually know what that means. Okay. But then I'm walking and one day I see like a blue flower. I'm like, huh, interesting. Like I wouldn't know that it was blue, but I would have a resonance towards that flower that's reflecting that same color. And then maybe I walk past a yellow flower. And again, the person or me doesn't understand actual names of colors, just knows energy signatures, right? I walk past a yellow flower, cool, and kind of walk by it. There's a blue one. Oh, spend some time with that blue flower, right? And so here it's very simple. We've cut out all the names, we've cut out all the colors. What we've highlighted is inner resonance of true being. Because
Ooh.
whenever you have inner resonance of true being, now you can look out here
Oh
and
yes.
it's not going to be what teacher, it's not going to be what book, it's going to be, I only recognize the color blue. I only recognize,
Oh
you know,
wow.
truth because I'm it. It's literally that simple. That's all I've ever done.
I love that
And that's why
inner resonance of true
yes,
being.
yeah, yes, inner resonance with true being. That's your navigation system. That's how you can go into the deepest, darkest areas and not be infiltrated.
I love that.
You know?
Yeah. And yeah,
It's
it makes sense. And I love what you said as well that, you know, anything that's said that got it all figured out isn't true because it's always expanding and changing. So you
it's
have to
always
have that inner resonance.
you
Yeah.
have to, yes. The only thing that isn't changing is I would say the nuance or the ether or the substratum that is
Mm.
the canvas of which all the changing things are taking place on, you know?
Yeah.
But even within that's changing. But yeah, like what's more important in this point is like a lot of people get really triggered and offended whenever I talk about one thing, but then the next time I'm talking about that thing. And the next time I'm talking about that thing, it's because they think I'm talking about the teacher or the teaching.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the truth in all of it. If you took all my material and you put it together, over time you could pull out where I have found the truth in each and every single area that I've been in.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm continuing to refine, but I really feel that that's what it means to be pure loving innocence, is to have that inner connection with true being.
Yeah. And it's constant refinement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love the innocence and the quote, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, right?
Mhm. Well, can you walk through the valley, you know, the shadow of death if you're terrified? No, you
Yeah.
get your, you know, you get your butt kicked.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know,
And it's like that's the protection, you know?
that's the protection. Knowing who you are, knowing
Oof.
what you are, is the protection. You can have bad days and still know who you are. You can get angry and still, you know, feel human emotions and still know who you are, because you will always return back to that true being. Where some people would be like, oh no, like, am I getting hijacked? Oh no, am I getting infiltrated? Is this happening? It's like, no, you're having a human response to someone who did something shitty to you. But can you return back to that innocence and remember yourself, right? And for me, that's been the key is yeah, traveling in that way is like, I don't depend on anything out here. I can go into any avenue and, like you said, make sense, doesn't make sense, and that's it.
Yeah, I love that, and I think sometimes we confuse it with like, oh no, that I'm not gonna look, but
Mm-hmm.
someone else is saying this on the podcast. Interviewed Alex Egg.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying that actually no, the point is to be able to look, but then still, you know,
Yes,
and go in to
yes,
get the answer.
yes, yep, yep. And like another analogy that just came to my mind is like, if you think of like I don't fish, but just using this analogy, if when you throw out like your line into the water, you're looking to catch a fish or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, one time you might catch a old rotten bag, and you lift up the old rotten bag, and what do? You're like, oh man, that's not it. You take it off the line, you throw it back. You're not like, oh my god, the bag, it's gonna get me. I'm so afraid. I'm so terrified. It's like, oh, that's not what I was looking for. And you throw the line out again, and
Yeah.
then maybe this time you pick up an old shoe. It's like, oh my god, the shoe. It's like, no, it's just a shoe. You put it back. Third time, and now you get the fish, metaphorically speaking. Okay, that's what I've been looking for the whole time. Why? Because you're anchored within something that is much more grandiose and much more everlasting than anything out here.
Yeah, and it's like you said, the resonance. So it's like,
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah. That one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
I
love
love
it.
it. It
These
makes
concepts.
sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense.
But people need to have a primer, and people have a hard time because, again, we go back to what we were talking about, and the real state of the world is this has been conditioned out of us. The reticular activation system, that's been manipulated to the point where now people are only able to talk about the negative stuff because that's all that their nervous system is programmed to pick up on,
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
you know. So what do? I can't do anything with the person who wants to complain about this or that. I can only be.
I love that. So I just wanted to talk about. So, what is your understanding now of moving forwards? Obviously, peaceful human advancement. I love the way you have described it in,
Mm,
and it does what it says. You know, the title. It's in the title. I feel like.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like, what is your understanding of this transition, like that we're in now, and physically, but also what it means, you know, when you're going into another dimension, and
Mm.
because I feel like there's a lot of concepts, but what do they really mean?
It's happening way more faster and way more subtly than people even realize.
Wow.
Like the movies can really, and our imaginations are beautiful, but they can also really over exaggerate the transition. Like, and this is what I'll say about that. So first, there's always a trickle down effect from the higher realms, not from the top of the pyramid of this system, but from the higher realms. There's always a trickle down effect, and it's the people at the quote the bottom of the pyramid scheme, um, that are the most powerful, because they're the only ones who actually implement change. They're the only ones who actually recognize that something's off and something needs to happen. And so the first thing that we need to do, or that we are doing, I see this going as people, is there's a lot. Like, I've really been studying the law stuff. I've moved all my uh, assets and everything into the private, right? With the Republic of Eternal Nations, which is a private association, with the Source Fountain Ministries, which is a private association. Why have I done that? Because there's no power in depending on someone else to do something for you. Whether that's give you a license, whether that's telling you that you can travel here or there. And so humanity on a physical level first must recognize It's avoidance of responsibility. Not that it's not responsible, but that it is there's avoidance of responsibility right now, meaning an ignorance or a misunderstanding of what it means to be responsible. Being responsible doesn't mean that you depend on the government to do X, Y, and Z for you, right? What it means is that you are coming together, as I have written here in my notes, and you're co-creating with each other. If you don't want glyphosate and nonsense in your food, learn how to grow your own food. Like, that's responsible. I know it might sound harsh, but I can't even really be mad that the industries are doing what they do, because there's 7 billion people in the world. And so they got to find a quick and efficient way to feed people. I really feel like on their end, seeing it from their eyes, they kind of wish humans would figure it out and start to, like, what if it's really not about poisoning humanity? What if they're just trying to keep up with humanity? Right? What if they're trying to actually, shoot, man, these guys are hungry. Like, okay, we don't have time to make that right now. Like, let's go. Like, we don't have time to grow those plants. It's gonna take 2 years. Like, get the chemicals in, that'll sustain them so they can stay on the shelves. Like, hurry, hurry, hurry. They're hungry. Right? What if that's their mindset? And we've been looking at it through the eyes of like fear and anger. And so we've seen them as these tyrants. Instead of taking responsibility, learning about permaculture, learning how to cultivate the land, learning how to purify the water, right? Learning how to connect with the stars. So physically, that's what humans need to do first, is to see in their everyday life where they can become more private, where they can start to unplug from the artificial matrix and become self-sustainable. Very simple. Can I start to have a little tiny garden? Can I make some more homemade meals with wholesome ingredients? Can I start to partner with local farms? And then the other physical thing is networking with people, real people, not companies and institutions and public domains, not the government, but start to really connect with living spirits that are right next door to you, that you've never talked to, who might be able to help you out, right? Set up your own events in your local areas. And what this does, spiritually speaking, over time, as people move into this, vibration of love, we start to shift the ether responds, right? Source responds, and it starts to create now the atmosphere where I literally have it written here. Again, I keep referring back to this, but moving forward, people are going to have to make a choice, because any healthy organism is not going to let itself die or be outdone. And this goes from the smallest thing to all of creation. So source is never going to let itself be like, I just don't I'm just done. So in order for source, in order for all of creation to continue, it has to do it in a healthy way. So it cannot take with it into the higher dimensions, frequencies that are violent, that are aggressive, that are bitter, that are resentful. Just that is not conducive to. So it's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not. It can't come.
It can't. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So people have to make a choice, either to align with what I wrote here years ago, the living light, or the real true light, or they'll continue to follow the false light. And they can do that, but like you said earlier, that's going to be a completely different experience. We're already seeing it happen. It doesn't mean we go off planet right away. What it means is, over time, physical people will start to spend less time with each other and start to build together and start to operate in the same old way they have. Okay. And over time, as the people start to build with each other and understand their divinity, understand the cosmos, understand what gravity is. Like, that's really important, by the way. It'll solve everything if you understand what gravity is.
Wow.
Yeah. Then now we start to get into the interstellar cosmic stuff, because at least a group of people have shown that they can handle the responsibilities. And so I do believe in my lifetime, we're going to see some very profound star activity, I do believe that we will get back to portal travel, interdimensional travel, at least a select few of us, because the human race is not going to be depleted. But what that means is at least a couple of us have to actually continue on that gene pool for humanity to exist. So I think it all does lead to the stars, which is another way to say interstellar, uh, interdimensionally. I think that's where everything is headed. I don't think it can go any other way. When I see the starships in the sky, they at one point were in some sort of similar situation like this. They're just people. They're literally just people who have figured out more than modern humanity has. That's it. They look like us. Their codes and symbols, like people are doing light language and spirit language. That's the symbols that they use. There's no difference between us and them, except that they have remembered and chosen love. And they've chosen to co-create with divine will instead of trying to control Mother Nature, to control the stars. They decided to fly alongside of them. There's a big difference. So I think that's where everything is headed. I don't think they're as alien as what we've been told.
Yeah. I love that. That's really cool. Do you want to read some more of your?
Yeah, I'd love to read it. So, and this will kind of sum up everything that we've kind of gone over today. It's like,
Cool.
so so I wrote here the great separation. And again, those words are figuratively because again, first there's going to be a physical separation. People are going to start resonating with their family members and friends. And over time, the energy is going to shift. And we're getting so much support. So the separation is going to happen physically. You can't ever really be separate from source. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the illusion that we're all living. That's going to be the separation. So it's not divide and conquer. It's divide, unite, and thrive. There is a level of conscious awareness that is pushing the boundaries of our reality. Those who own and begin to experience this new awareness will be separate from those who do not. This new awareness is rooted in unity, soul union, conscious expansion, truth, and light. And this is all written well before I knew anything about Voyagers, well before Ashana Dean. Like this was just like there. This light is the eternal glow, the inner light that is within all things. This is not the spiritually manipulated light that was designed to enslave and mislead many souls. The most truest light is the life force and light that shines from within. Those who ignore the call to shine and live through this inner light will continue to live the false light reality of fear and worry. Right? So there's that part. I do not want to confuse one light form with the other, for neither is greater or lesser. It is simply a change that is occurring. Okay, so that's kind of what we talked about. This is just a change that's occurring. And choices need to be made. That's energy never is destroyed, just what? It moves, it changes form. So instead of this is bad, this is good, they're fallen. Energy is just changing its form. That's what's happening. The great separation will divide families, friends. It will collapse empires. That's so good.
I love that.
Here I am. I'm all excited because, I mean, it's written like it's like, yeah, this is prophesized. I mean, not just through me, but this came through me. But this is just what is happening, what needed to happen.
Yeah.
It'll collapse empires. It will come between businesses as new ideals and thought forms are created. Two realities will take place: the physical reality with less emphasis on the internal or spiritual world, and the inner world with less emphasis on the physical world. Both will exist simultaneously yet separate. Literally, I wrote this.
Wow.
You will know family not by clothing, skin tone, or any outer layer, but through the feeling of their being.
Wow.
As we evolve, our energy frequency begins to become stronger. Okay. The energy frequency will be your name. So that's really powerful. Again, we don't know each other by the names. We know each other by, oh, you feel familiar. Oh, you have an interesting vibration. That's what we say, right? You look familiar.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We
Have I
never
met you
say,
before?
oh, what's that?
Have I met you before?
Have I met you before? Right? So this stuff is already happening. It's just not as like, ooh, Hollywoody as we think. It's just you have to have the eyes and the wisdom to know it whenever you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You
Yeah,
start to see it everywhere, you
totally.
know? Um,
Yeah.
the very essence of who you are will be spoken through your vibration. Words lose meaning, and feeling is the main language. Voice will be reduced to expressions of joy instead of noisy utterances. And I love this part. A web of telepathic communication will be remembered through humanity. Animals will self-regulate without the destruction from humans. Each individual will have the physical ability to tap into mass communication. As free-willed beings, we do not need to fully, and then it stops. That's the last words.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
That's mad. It's mad that it came to you such a long time ago, and I feel like it's so accurate right now. It's so accurate.
Well, and here's the beginning of it. So, and again, this is back in 2006. Was it 4 or 5 years ago? It might have been end of 2015. I sit in the stillness of the chaos. This is how I started to write this download. I sit in the stillness of the chaos, the whirlwinds of confusion and misleading beliefs. Fight back, fight for change was once my cry. Frustration with the way things were, for a world burning, feeling the weight of global transformation. So this is how I felt back in 2016. But when you understand time is only a measure. It's
Yeah,
not real. And you understand that
yeah.
what is felt in 2016 and 2022 is the same, but what's changed is the way that those things have come about.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that I think this energy exists somewhere all the time, and that you learn to evolve through it.
Yeah.
I don't think this is really, really, really about transforming the earth or transforming anyone. I think it's about coming back into wholeness, and you just outgrow this part of the game. And so for another group of souls, they'll incarnate and they'll have the same experience, and they'll move on to the next level.
Yeah. It's mad. I really feel like it is a game sometimes.
It's only game in town. Um, so but I let go. Interesting. For I did not crave to bring change. I did not come to bring change. This cross is no longer mine to carry. I've come to show the way, no protesting. You cannot fight fear with fear. This only creates more fear. I take no offense to those who look to bring harm. I forgive this world because I have forgiven myself. We are not destroying the old ways. Oh, wow. We are not destroying the old ways. It still exists. We are transitioning into the new. Through global chaos, we may find inner peace. This is literally crazy that I wrote this back in 2016.
Yeah.
Perhaps once the world is burning to the ground and all forms of belief have failed to bring peace on earth, maybe then we will turn inward and seek the only one true God within. It is through our inner guidance, our own inner turmoil, that we create external conflict. And this part is crazy. Sickness on the outside is indicative of a corrupt mind on the inside. So think about humanity right now in that sentence, right? As we reflect our deepest fears and misunderstandings in America, we now can start to heal, for it is in the knowing of the symptom where we can begin to cure the dis-ease.
Yeah.
And everything else came after that.
Oh, I love that.
um,
I love at the beginning you said divide, unify, and then thrive.
mm, right. Yeah. I mean, this is, and every time I read this, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And I really hope I get to a point in my life where I don't read this and I'm like, oh, this is happening right now. Like, it'd be great to read this and be like, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
glad. That's
Yeah,
over.
yeah. Like to move past it. Thank
Like
you
that's the
for doing
goal. Yeah, you're welcome. And
that.
it's really funny because we've moved many times, and for some reason this has never been lost. I don't know how. It's just this flimsy little notebook written on tablet paper. So
It sounds like it was written way before, and it's like a prediction of what's to come.
yeah. Well, are they predictions, or are they just set frequency bands?
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you know the frequency, like if you're a star being, and you're well beyond this realm, you might understand that, okay, like in this dimension exists this kind of modality, right? And this one exists this modality. Um, and so when I go here, I can expect this to happen. So maybe this is, like I said, maybe this is always like this here.
Mm.
And it's like, I don't predict it. It's like you just know that it's always like it here,
Mm.
and like we always know that at the heart of it all is love.
Mm.
So is love a prediction, or is love a state of being? You see what I mean?
I love that. I just wanted to ask you as well the question that you asked me. What do you think will happen to the people who are not going to go on this trajectory? I guess
Hmm.
path.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, did you write it down?
No, you asked me that same question. What did I?
Yeah.
What I'm just gonna ask it back to you. What do you think?
Oh, oh, I was like waiting. I was like, go ahead. Um, well, what do I think? I mean, I wrote it back in 2016. I already answered your question. But what I wrote there was that the people who don't choose this path will just continue to live the life of fear and worry.
Oh yeah,
Because
false life.
yeah, I don't think that source denies any part of itself. I think in order to be source, it has to understand that the pinky and the thumb and the ring and the middle finger are all, and the pointer are all, interconnected, no matter how different they seem. And so I think people who choose the path of, let's say, most resistance to their true nature. Ooh, that's good. Ooh, okay. So you can choose the path of least resistance or the path of most resistance. And if you choose the path of most resistance, you can expect things to get progressively worse. You can expect, because I think it's like source is always going to try to push the baby out of the bird's nest. Like sooner or later, little soul, you gotta evolve. Like, I'm gonna give you choice. I'm not gonna make you do it, but I'm gonna make it really uncomfortable for you, so that as a whole, we can all grow. We can all grow. And so I think people are going to get really, really uncomfortable in their physical lives. um, they're going to get really sad. They're going to get sick. um, I think physical death is bypassing. I think people will die, but not because of they're just miserable, but because they had a soul contract to only endure so much, and they're like, all right, well, that's all I can handle right now. I'm out. But they'll be recycled because they didn't consciously choose to move into the next harmonics. And guess what? The next harmonic universe isn't like somewhere way out there. It's like within us. It's a conscious state of mind.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'd love to, because I feel like a lot of the time it is projected as this thing outside going into something else.
It's
Yeah.
it's simultaneous. I call it unanomy.
Ooh.
Instead of dichotomy, I call these kind of things unanomy, where you have two things that seem like separate, or one's in, one's out. They're one and the same. I call it unanomy. And I mean, I've experienced it in my life. I mean, like I said, the ability to do some of the things I've seen, and or do, and some of the things I've seen doesn't happen to people who are not in a different state of consciousness or
Hmm.
different multidimensional universe.
Yeah.
So people who are staying behind, meaning in a different frame of mind, are going to have a different physical experience.
Ooh.
Over time, what we're going to see is we're going to start to see new animals that we've never seen before. We're gonna start to physically see more anomalies start to happen, and we're gonna start to see a lot of sky activity. This is gonna happen physically on this planet within probably a couple years, and it's not because like the ETs are coming. It's because humanity, a group of humanity, is actually moving into these next frequency bands. But those frequency bands are only mirrors of the inner frequency bands that we've already chosen to move into. And so, just like right now on the hardcore 3D plane, we see lions and tigers and giraffes and cats and dogs. That's specific to this frequency band, which is again a state of being. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I like it's a really good way of describing it.
It's a gradual transition, just like your fingernails grow, your hair grows, right? Have you ever seen your hair grow? Have you ever seen your fingernails grow?
Yeah.
No, but it happens.
Mm,
So why would that be any different than this transition? We're
mm,
not going to see like one day we're here, next day we're over there. No, it's a gradual
mm.
shift that happens. It's a beautiful birth
Yeah,
into the higher realms over a period of time with
yeah.
a pocket of beings.
I love that. And so you think it's going to be the people who are have the inner frequency dimension?
Of course, it can't be any. Yeah, it can't be the people who are still holding anger and resentment and pain and fear. I mean, that's no different than having a beautiful sanctuary with beautiful music and someone coming in with like an out of tune guitar and being like, "Rah!" Like it's gonna just throw everything off.
Wow.
So there is a structure to
Yeah.
creation. I certainly believe that. I think it's much more simple than
Yeah.
some of the things we've studied.
Yeah, and
Um,
I like what you always say, it's subtle because it feels so natural, it's just like, oh.
right.
Yeah.
You think the butterfly in the cocoon is like really realizing it's becoming a butterfly?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow.
You think it's really
Wow.
sitting there thinking about like, oh, I'm a butterfly. It's like, no, I'm a caterpillar, still a cat. Oh, I can do this now. Okay, that's cool. I'm still a cat. Like it's just these little things that you start to notice first about yourself,
Hmm.
first about how you think about things,
Yeah.
and like how you process information and the things you're drawn to. It's like a very simple every day. It's like you're spoon fed by the cosmos, by source, by your higher dimensional aspects. Then over time you build up this energy of like, oh well, now I can do telekinesis. Okay. Oh well, let me read about telekinesis, you know. And then it's like this beautiful transition because I don't think source is this aggressive like, pummel you into the ground until you get it right.
Hmm. No, I don't think so either.
That only happens if you're choosing to go to the whole fear God isn't fear God. It's really fear fear, and you're going against the natural current. There's a natural flow to things,
Yeah, yeah,
and if you're going against that natural flow, it's not that that flow is doing something to you to make you feel bad. It's that you're experiencing the resistance that you
yeah,
have conjured up.
yeah, yeah.
you know the stream, the river flows this way. Okay,
Yes.
it's always going to flow this way. Just because you decide to swim upstream doesn't mean that the river itself is intending for you to feel pain, hurt, and worry,
Yeah,
or drowned even.
yeah,
It's your choice to swim upstream and against the current that will give you that feeling that life is just kicking your butt. It's like, no honey, no sweetheart, like listen, you're choosing this.
yes, yeah,
You can either align with the divine, or you're gonna, or not.
yeah.
you know I think that's a very simple way to explain it.
Yeah, I feel like it's just becoming conscious and it happens over time and then it's like we're just in the process we're just learning this kind of like natural law. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Learning
Yeah.
what, because I feel like that's true. There is actually a divine
Mm-hmm.
mechanism, science behind it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know, and then we come into realization, because sometimes I feel like things are like, oh yeah, but this is true, but it kind of is, but it kind of isn't, and then it's just like, and then
And then you
something
settle in.
are, and then
Yeah.
some things are like, no, it's this way. Do you know what I mean? But not everything
Yes,
is.
exactly. And it really is like that. It really is like that. And you have that mental dexterity. You have that mental flexibility where you can settle into like an uncomfortable spot, but not be like completely like screwed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you hold that vibration to know that, okay, um, it's always a fine tuning. Like
yeah,
you're describing an experience I have all the time. Like I'll go out and I'll stargaze every single night, and it's the most beautiful thing. Just like I can't really explain it, but it's this very pure feeling that I connection I have with the cosmos. And I'll just mentally say like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. Like I'm ready for the next layer. And then at one point, you know what's funny? That at one point that next layer was the guardian teachings.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
Big
was that next
big
layer at
point.
one point, you know? But then you're not meant to stay there. You're never meant to just stay in one spot,
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
you know? You evolve and you grow and you then expand your consciousness, and you have to trust yourself. I had an experience contact one time where um the ETs actually came through the phone. Like actually you can hear their voices coming through the phone.
Mm.
I have this up on my Instagram. The reason I share this, I really want to make this clear. Like we have to stop compartmentalizing our cosmic brothers and sisters. Like we have to stop being like, they're up there and we're here. They're evolved, we're not. It's like, again, the pinky and the thumb are on the same hand. If we can allow that to like sink into our psyche that they are people, they're people, then not only will this planet transition seamlessly, but every person's individual experience will be much more pleasant. Because again, we will start to move into that flow with the stream. And I know there's bad people out there who maybe are unconscious and do crappy things. I'm sure there's other people on other planets who do crappy things too. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is, as a collective, there are groups of beings that truly do care. There's more beings out there that care about humanity than the ones that don't. Like that's a fact. Um, but my experience is, where was I going with this? Oh, they came through the phone. The night before I went out, I was under the stars, and I simply said, hey, like I'd love to. I had this device on my phone where if something showed up, it changed the magnetic field around me and the phone like buzzed, right? And I said, okay, if you guys want to just communicate through the phone, that's great. Nothing happened that night. Went to bed. Next morning, I was having a phone call with my fiance, my partner, or she was my fiance at the time, and something came through the phone where my voice stopped. She couldn't hear me, but then I could hear this other voice coming through. And it's a whole 6-minute video, but the main message that they said was, listen to yourself. They cannot hurt you. They cannot control you.
Oof.
That
I
has stuck with me for years now. Listen to yourself. They cannot hurt you. They cannot control you.
feel like sounds like a Michael Jackson lyric.
I love Michael. He was one of the homies for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean it's radical responsibility. It's not over dramatizing the evolutionary process.
Yeah.
Subtle. At least for me, it's been subtly dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, I heard a while ago this term, the subtle realm, and I never really knew what it meant. But then I started to understand because you start feeling it and you realize like it really is subtle.
It is. You know why? It's
Yeah.
subtle. It's like it's probably what the mystics or the occult or whatever talks about,
Yeah.
because it's never not there. You know who it's hidden from?
Yeah.
Those who can't perceive it.
Oof. Yeah.
So nothing's secret. It's just a secret is simply there because people don't have it. consciousness to perceive it.
Mm. Yeah, and requires a sensitivity.
It does. Which if you're not treating your body right and doing all this
Yeah.
other
And I was just gonna say, what's your diet like these days?
Oh, do you really want to know?
Yeah, why not?
No, yeah, okay, sure. All right. Listen, everyone, take a deep breath because on this planet, people are so sensitive around food.
Dude, I don't know what's going on.
Like they're so sensitive about what you say you eat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. And mm, it's okay. I'm just gonna jump to it. So I eat a plant-based diet. I don't eat meat or dairy. I went vegetarian years ago in college because I like animals, and I even really didn't even like meat anyways. Whenever I ate it, I liked A1 steak sauce. I liked salt and pepper. I liked the seasonings, but I can remember eating the chicken and like seeing like like the tendons on it and stuff like that, like and like the gristle, whatever it's called. Like no thanks. And so I actually started. My body started to be like, I can't even do this. Um, and then I was really sick too. We probably weren't eating, good meat anyways to begin with. But I like I said, I played sports, and so there was a lot of like steak and things like this. But I felt so heavy and so just weighed down a lot of the time. And in college at a Division 1 school, they make sure you get good meat, because you're a big time Division 1 football player and you got to have, and I went vegetarian in school, my senior year of college. And I actually stopped sitting at the football table. All the football players sat at the same table. I was the only one who didn't sit there. I'd
Yeah.
have people come up to me and be like, "Why aren't you sitting there?" I'm like, "Cause I don't know. I just don't want to. It's just like not me."
Mm.
Um, I started eating a lot more fruits and vegetables. I loved yogurt. I was still eating dairy at that time. Loved ice cream, but then I'd start to break out and get like hives all over my body and everything. I'd get like these really. I still have a few scars like from on my face. Actually, I get these really like big like um I don't know, like blisters and stuff on my face, and I didn't know why. Um and so years later, met my partner. We had our daughter Cora, who's 5 now. We were still eating dairy. I think Anne was still eating meat at that time. I was vegetarian, she was eating meat still, and we were still both doing dairy. Okay. And our daughter was born and she had poop. When she pooped, she had blood in her poop. And
Wow.
so we took her to our homeopathic doctor, and she said, do you guys still eat dairy? And we say yes. And she said, you should just give it a break just for a couple of days to see how that goes.
Wow.
And we stopped, and her poop was completely fine. So since then we stopped eating. That's what put us
Oh.
on the quote vegan plant-based diet trajectory. And I can attest to my life, the contact experiences, my dreams, all of that stuff enhanced tremendously um, whenever I cleaned up
Mm.
my insights. I know people talk about parasites and stuff like that all the time. I've done cleanses.
Mm.
I've worked with my gut, but really, besides that, I think. I mean, actually, I don't want to say that. But yeah, so we eat plant based right now. Um, I feel like that makes sense for an evolving species. People probably won't like this at all. I know there's a lot of people in the community who's been vegan for years and they've gone back to eating meat,
Yeah.
and that's totally fine. I mean, I don't hold anything against them. It's funny because I feel like people like they feel like they need to tell people that. I'm like,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
if you really are secure in it, why do you need to feel like you need to tell people it? It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few people talk about this recently, and I'm just like, what's going on now? All of
Yeah,
a sudden, there's this thing going on.
there's something going on. There really is, and I think it's another deep psyop. I really do.
Yeah.
Because I think,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree with you what you're saying. For an evolving species, like it just doesn't resonate with me. When I changed my diet, I became so sensitive,
Hmm.
and that's when everything opened up to me.
Hmm.
And I feel like the diet was such a big part of that.
It's a big part of it. Yes.
And I can't imagine going back to eating meat. Now, obviously, I don't want to tell people what to do. I feel like everyone's body is different, so you have to listen to yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
Whatever
Yeah.
you feel like you need to eat, then you need to eat it. I saw this comment one person said, which I loved as well. It said like, maybe at one point we'll all just all of a sudden go back to being vegan, and like maybe perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm really grateful for you bringing this up because you're brave for that, because this is your podcast, and this is, your part of your life's work, and a lot of people could take offense to this, but it goes back to what we said earlier about having conversation and dialogue.
Yes, so
If
true.
you if you're so secure, like, again, what did we say? Allow your beliefs to be challenged. Now, people will say to me, well, Krys, allow your veganism to be challenged. Go for it. Like, I will gladly invite that conversation. And because I've heard all kinds of things, all kinds of reasons why people have gone back, and they've said like, well, it's because vegans don't understand that they're killing the mice in the fields. I'm like, wait, I don't understand the logic there. So the logic there would be that instead of the killing the mice unintentionally, we're going to intentionally slaughter a cow and intentionally take the eggs from uh, a chicken, right? Intentionally do that, but then tell someone who eats plants, who's planting the plants, who's harvesting, who's communicating with the plants as they're doing it, who's giving them the proper soil they need, no GMOs, none of that, that somehow, some way, that's harming a mouse. That the logic doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, yeah,
In that way, it just doesn't logically, physically make sense.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those things that I'm realizing there is a design to it. And obviously you have to listen to your own body. But one of my friends asked me the other day, and I just keep coming back to this. I just feel like if we're evolving and we're like becoming lighter,
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't make sense to me. And if we're supposed to be activating our light body, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like we can't be eating meat. That doesn't really.
It doesn't really,
Yeah.
yeah. And maybe the people who were vegan and have gone back to eating meat are from a different star system. I don't know. Like, maybe they're from a different star system than we are, and like for
Yeah.
their light body, they need that. But I don't know because I'm not them.
Yeah.
But as far as the question you asked me, how I see it is there is a trajectory
Yes.
that would make sense. Like, whenever I'm seeing these starships, and that's another thing, is I don't know if people have had, again, those direct experiences with transcendental beings, because I have actually had communications, and I've asked one of the beings like, hey, like, what do you guys eat? And
Wow.
they said like, we don't eat, like, we we are the energy. So if anything, like,
Yeah.
it'd be energy, but it's like they weren't saying like they eat energy, but they were saying that they are fueled by source, by that, by energy itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so, and then like another thing is like fruit, right? So fruit is designed to dissolve,
Yes.
meaning the seeds in that fruit, the only reason fruit exists is to protect the seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. So whenever you're eating fruit, that fruit is not screaming to you like, that fruit is going to get eaten, it's going to get dissolved, it's going to, something's going to happen so that seed can be replanted into the earth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then,
Somehow.
you know and then if I pick like kale out of my garden, if
Yeah.
I were to uproot that kale, yes, I'd be killing the plant.
Yes.
But pulling off one of the stems that are growing is no different than doing this,
Yeah.
pulling a piece of my hair out. So I think as an evolving species, it certainly needs to be understood that
Yeah.
true sustenance
Yeah.
comes from the sun, physically speaking.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Like, if you really want to talk about it, when
Yeah.
you sun gaze, you don't need to eat anything.
Yeah. I've had that before. Just been out in the sun all day and just been like, oh, cool. I'm not even hungry.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I think that I haven't eaten. I had a piece of toast, an avocado toast this morning, um, but that's been it. You
Yeah.
know.
But ultimately, I always think trust yourself, and it's not an overnight thing as well. It's not some people it is, for some people it isn't. You know what I mean? It's just.
Yeah.
But another thing that I've heard as well is that when you eat animals, you're also, or whatever you're eating, right? You're inheriting the karma. of that being.
Mm.
So it's
Mhm.
like, and the pain and the suffering, that's another.
Yeah, we're doing that all the time anyways,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because again, it's humans love to, like, again, compartmentalize. It's like, okay, so I get that, but that pain and karma isn't located in the meat per se. It's I don't like, that's the one thing that I'm like, I get it. I don't think because you eat it that you're inheriting that. I think it's because you are now
Mm.
a or what is it, like, you're associated with that act.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
That's how you inherit it. You're associated, you're guilty by association,
yeah.
kind of. It's like, okay, so now you have agreed to, and you have aligned yourself with the slaughtering of this animal by now consuming its flesh. Like, you've literally, and religion has done a great job of getting people to, like, believe that, you need to consume the flesh of Christ. Like, that's cannibalism. Hello. It's really weird. Drink the blood of Jesus. Like, wait, what? I don't, have you heard that in Christianity?
No.
Oh, okay. You're okay. So that's the thing. It's like, they'll have you do this thing. It's like, you eat bread, and like, this bread represents
Oh,
the
yeah.
body of Christ,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they have you drink the wine, and that represents the blood. That's literally a ritual for cannibalism. It's very deep. Um, and so I think this whole idea of, like, grass-fed beef, it doesn't excuse that the only way that that cow dies is from its own, is by force. It doesn't choose to die.
Yes, 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 yes.
And milk was designed, whether it's raw milk. I see a lot of raw milk stuff going around. And listen, you guys know me by now. If people who watch this, I love you regardless.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking
I'm
the same
talking about
thing.
my experience. I haven't got a chance to talk about this yet. So again, this is going to show us who is able to actually hold a conversation and who's not able to hold a conversation, and hopefully we can talk about it,
Yeah.
because I am curious. Maybe I'm missing something. But
Yeah, one thing I also know is that my
yeah,
diet is always changing. It's never,
yeah,
you've got to literally have to just go with whatever. And with
what's
whenever
there?
you're healing and one time I remember I just had to eat loads of cheese. And for the
You
whole
what?
year, I had to eat loads of cheese.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I just ate loads of cheese and then done.
You're done. Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, again, I'm speaking only from my direct human experience and what I've perceived. Um, but it's funny how quickly people will take your, like, one person's experience as a threat to theirs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's because if people really aren't rooted in what they are saying or doing, they'll feel like someone else is doing something opposite or talking about it as a threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it's
definitely.
really not. If you're solid with it, it's not a
Yeah.
threat.
And also, I think there's just a level of understanding the process that we're going through. Like one of my other friends that I interviewed in the podcast, she said, you know, she used to eat loads of meat, and to understand there's like she has to get to there. So like vegan or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Seeing the process, and like you said, this is not a threat, but just understanding that this is kind of like what's taking place.
Right.
And when you
Yeah.
can see it, then you know, and then you can help yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, if people are watching this, there's stuff I don't know about veganism. I mean, feel free to share. But I think even for me, it's not even just about, like, the mice or the cows or,
Yeah, no, it's not.
the pigs. It's like more spiritual for me. It's
Yeah,
about understanding that, like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, if I say I'm an eternal being and
yeah.
I'm a self-generating being, there's a good chance I should start to move in direction of sustaining my energy without actually eating anything, surely but slowly, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so, for me, going back to eating a cow versus choosing to sun gaze and then going to eat, like, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever it is, um, yeah, that's not where I'm at right now. I think, and I also feel bad. I want to say this too, because it's something that I feel compassion for. Like, I have kids, so one thing, I could never imagine someone coming in and taking my partner's breast milk to feed that, like, their cat or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a slight against anyone who's drinking dairy, like, not at all. But again, here we are just discussing. I
Yeah.
could never imagine that. And so, how do humans rationalize? going to a cow mother whose breasts are her udders, who are designed for that baby. That baby will drink that and grow 300 pounds in like a couple months, right? Now I understand that there's some enzymes and stuff in like raw milk that's helpful. I get that, but I don't think there's anything in the plant kingdom that cannot provide what milk or dairy can. Um, but basically, whenever humans drinking milk, they're drinking a baby cow's milk.
Yeah.
Like that's like me going up to another woman and just being like, "Oh, I'm thirsty." Like it, I have not been able to wrap my head around it. I cannot wrap my head
I
around that
love
logic.
that.
I mean, could you imagine going up to a grown woman who's feeding her baby, taking the baby off, putting the baby aside, and then putting the boob in your mouth? Like what?
So
I
interesting.
the logic for me. Again, this is not supposed to be offensive, but it is something I'm very curious to.
Yeah, I love that. You know what? Since I was a child, I hated the taste of milk. It always just give me this funny lump in my throat. I couldn't.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
But
like, don't remind me, please. I don't want to look at it. No, Krys, you have to look at that. No, don't make me.
jokes. But yeah, I think ultimately, again, these are my opinions. Trust yourself more. Do what
Trust yourself.
you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, look, I could be completely off. Maybe you drink milk and you turn into Superman.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't care. This is why I never talk about food or post about it because
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
I don't care. I really just don't
Yeah.
care. But it's when the opportunity arises, it is fun to discuss some of the thoughts I've had around it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, I feel like we can wrap it up. Thanks. Thank you so much for your time. I feel like it's quite a long one, but it seems like
Yeah, I don't know how long we've been on, but this has been absolutely um, amazing. And it's funny because there's still so much more that we could uncover
I
and talk
know for sure.
about, like, you know,
Yeah.
interstellar stuff and things like this. But in short, I think we could sum it up with saying that, humanity's moving into a space where they have to make a choice. Either they are going to move on or not. Excuse me. And that those choices aren't made by like finding the next teacher or the next religion or the next teaching. Those choices are made by our own inner guidance, right? And how we align to the external world. And if sometimes that external world does involve a teaching, we can look at that teaching now not as the end all be all, but as a kind of like a check mark on the journey, right? To the full experience of truth. And yeah, I will say if people want to check out some of the other work I'm doing, I'll say this real quick.
Yeah, definitely.
Join like the Republic of Eternal Nations. We have our own IDs, our own vital records office. We have a lot of really amazing things going on. So I'll be doing a lot of private events coming up in the near future. I'm going to start to make my events more smaller and more private because again, this is that transition from, hey, we're out, to like, all right, I really honor my energy, space, and time. And I want to communicate with people who want to communicate with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
Jess, thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I just ask you one question that I like to ask everyone?
Yeah.
What does freedom mean to you?
What does freedom
Quite a big
mean?
question.
Hmm. I think, well, freedom is the ability to recognize truth. It's like
Mm.
anytime you latch yourself onto to just one thing, that's not freedom. Freedom has to be something that is boundless, something that has to be adaptable. And I think I like this example a lot. Before, I don't know if there was like a point in time or a Cartesian local destination, but let's say for this question, before Source outpictured its first part of itself, it
Mm.
was freedom. It was complete potentiality. Freedom can be complete potentiality and recognizing truth. But before Source outpictured itself, it was complete potential. The second something comes into form, it ceases to be that pure potentiality, that pure energy. So truly, 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 layer upon layer upon layer, every single thing that we see, read, hear in this holographic world is an illusion. It is not free, because that freedom is truly only in the purity, loving, and innocence, that pure prime spark that is complete potentiality. And from there you get into this, like,
Yeah.
civil freedoms and freedom in relationships and all that stuff. But at the core of it, that's what freedom is to me. It's recognizing truth, not your truth, because your truth is just a preference. Your truth is not the truth. Your truth is just a preference. My truth. You mean you prefer that, right? But the truth that surpasses all understanding is akin to freedom, is akin to pure potential.
Love that. I
Yeah.
feel like this is just very relevant to what's taking place right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I hope that when people listen to this, they can reflect on it and again, take what resonates. Please leave what doesn't.
Yes.
This has been a beautiful conversation, and here's to the
Yes.
future now moment of humanity. May we all continue to move into peaceful human advancement.
Yes. Amazing. Yeah, and open and curious. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time and
Jess.
for being open
Yeah.
and sharing. And I'm really excited to see. I feel like this period of time is really exciting.
Yeah. To be continued, though, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, star friend. We'll chat soon.
Amazing. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and to this podcast. We hope that you can gain many insights through the art of listening. If you haven't already, we would love it if you can follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if that feels right for you. We've also just launched our first online course, Awakening 101, a ninja's guide to navigating your spiritual awakening, which is led by me and is offered via donation. So if you feel called to that, then please dive in. It's available via our website. Thank you.